And welcome to Spartan Mag Live, open mic night, post-game call-in show. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in, gather around, get yourself a refreshment. Let me know what kind of refreshments you're partaking in today. I know a lot of people disappointed about what happened with Michigan State today, 52-12. Michigan State losing to the number 4 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes here at Spartan Stadium. Rough day for Michigan State in a lot of ways. Chime in the chat area or give us a call. Let us know what I'm asking for tonight. Nothing special. Just give me one or two things that you were disappointed in today's game and maybe one or two points of light. Things that you thought were good, productive, constructive, things Michigan State can build on. We'll talk about that as we go forward. We might go for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, might go an hour. Have to wait and see. I'm a little long-winded. We might get into some topics. Hard to say. But Michigan State falls to 2-4 on the season. Difficult game for Michigan State. However, I was just happy once again to be at the stadium in December for a football game, college football, 6th time this year. Michigan State played football. Last time for a home game, senior day kind of, although they did not have senior day festivities because there were no parents there and various other reasons. But nice to just have college football. And I missed all of you people there. No tailgating. Don't have those smells when you're driving up to the stadium. The people, the drunk kids getting in front of your car, walking in front of you, crossing on the road. I've got a lot of patience for that. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the people having fun. Nobody out there having fun and outside the stadium these days. Can't wait to see you guys back there next year. Hopefully, Labor Day Friday night next fall, get it going again. On campus today, as you see back there from earlier today, the leaves are gone, but it's a December day, 33 degrees. Saw a couple snow flurries. I thought when I was driving to the stadium, would have liked to have seen a little snow, just get a little bluster going. Didn't see any snow. And would have liked to have seen a half inch of snow. Not sure that would have slowed down Ohio State today, though. They were rolling pretty good. Rolling good on the ground, but not through the air. Michigan State's pass defense, not too bad at all. You might say, well, wait a minute. Justin Fields was killing him. He was killing him on the ground, but Fields, he's a technician with the mobility also, but accuracy, reads, arm, touch. Some of those games earlier this year, he would start out like 11 for 11, 12 for 12. He'd go like 20 for 23, averaging 300 yards a game. Michigan State had him at like 158 yards until he hit the 41-yarder to Olave, I think it was, against Kalen Gervin. I think that one put him up 52-10. At that point, he had thrown for 158 yards, like 16 out of 23. And for Fields and that passing attack and those receivers, that's a good day of pass defense. Now, I know Gervin gave up some separation here and there, but those receivers get separation on a lot of people. Pass rush wasn't terrible a couple times. He held the ball too long. Michigan State 3 sacks. Coverage was pretty good. Interior run defense was pretty good. Zone read quarterback defense, not so good, of course. And the impromptu Justin Fields, twinkle toes, tuck, carry, scramble, debilitating quarterback zone read keepers, a problem. And we talked about that all week in the VCast and the pre-snap read, that you can play good defense. Talked about it in the VCast after the game today, that you can play good defense against Justin Field. You can stop the run, and you can cover well, and he's back there, and you've played a good series on defense, and he just tucks it, runs, makes something up, moves the chains. That used to drive D'Antonio crazy, and for good reason. And that's part of what makes Justin Fields great, and that's the main thing that makes Ohio State really good right now, because the rest of their components are good, but they're not Ohio State good. Receivers are. Tight end is a good blocker. Offensive line today, Michigan State didn't face 3 of Ohio State's better offensive linemen, and it's a good offensive line, not a great offensive line. Master Teague, pretty good. Teague came in averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Michigan State had him at 3.3 yards per carry today on 14 carries. That's what I'm talking about. The inside zone with Teague, he had the one like 20-yarder down to the 1-yard line on their first touchdown drive. And on that one, Maverick Hansen was in the game, defensive tackle. Maverick Hansen doing what he can, redshirt freshman, but he's in the game because Jalen Hunt's not in the game. Now, I know Ohio State was without people, but they've got 4 stars on the bench. That's part of what makes them good, and they deserve to win. Maverick Hansen getting quality time for the first time in his career. Double team block, got moved off the line of scrimmage about 2 yards. That opened up a lot of daylight, and Antoine Simmons picked a gap, and there was too much room there. Teague gets out, takes it to the 1 yard line. That's when you remember they originally called it a touchdown, looked at it again, ruled them out of the 1 yard line. Michigan State stiffened up on first down, stops, second down, lost about a half yard. Third down, back to pass, covered, tucked it, took it on his own, touchdown. But Teague, even with that long run right there, stopped him the rest of the day. 3.3 yards per carry on 14 carries. My point is, Michigan State up front on defense, they were winning or stalemating a good bit against a very good offense. I was talking about this on the VCast. In my opinion, if you're getting blown out, really blown out, like outclassed, that means the other team is like getting 10 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards, 40 yards, 30 yards, 10 yards, touchdown, and you don't even hold them to a third down situation. Ohio State had like 8 third down situations in the first half. They converted about 5 of them. They were moving, and a lot of those was the quarterback tucking and running and doing it on his own. And he was the difference in the first half. I mentioned this on the VCast also. Hey, I know that I was going to say something, but wait a minute, I got something here. Hey, I know Michigan State was like destroyed statistically in the final analysis. Michigan State was beaten. But in the first half, in my opinion, Michigan State's defensive line was doing a good job stopping the run interior, doing a good job in pass defense for the most part. Michigan State's run game, you're not going to get much going against Ohio State. They've got good talent, of course. Michigan State average at best with run blocking. But to me, of course, Ohio State has better talent. But to me, in the first half, the difference was the 2 quarterbacks. Rocky Lombardi doing what he can. Got a lot of respect for him. He's a battler, doing his best. Took a shot out there. I hope he's doing well. Took a tough shot today. I hope he's doing well. And where was the flag on that? Michigan State was flagged for, was it Beasley or was it Panashuk? Beasley, I think. Panashuk. Beasley. Landing on the quarterback, flag. Ohio State didn't, no flag. Not that would change the game. But if the guy's going to get knocked out of the game, you'd at least like to see a first down and 15 yards for Peyton Thorne coming in. But over the course of time, Ohio State was going to prove to be the better team. Everybody knows that, unless there were some crazy breaks. But through the first half, I thought the difference was Michigan State's quarterback just couldn't get it going, couldn't get things connected against a shaky pass defense. Not shaky today in the first half based on what Michigan State was trying to do against them, but a pass defense that's been shaky good parts of the season. Couldn't complete passes. Couldn't come close to some of those passes out in the flat. Looking dangerous like that again out there. Ohio State gets it. Michigan State plays good coverage, stops the run, third down, and the quarterback makes the difference. Tuck, run, doing things. Again, for the 4th time, I know Ohio State's a better team, better talent. But in the first half, 28-0, to me, the difference was the quarterbacks. Don with a super chat. Appreciate that. Let me find this thing. Air horn. Don, really appreciate it. Appreciate you being a part of the post-game call-in show. Appreciate all of you. But I saw a couple good things from Michigan State physically and defense up front. But then you also saw what happens when Maverick Hansen gets in there for the first time, gets pushed off. They get that one down to the 1 yard line. Maverick Hansen, gritty player, very committed to the program. He's been second string most of the year, played a little bit goal line here and there. But I think that's the first time. He may have gotten in 2 or 3 plays earlier in the season. Today with Hunt out, had to get in there. And that blew a little bit of a bubble on that one. But anyway, the big takeaway from the game, the big question is the quarterback question now. Now, Rocky Lombardi did some good things in that Michigan game, did a good job piloting that game against Northwestern. But today, more like the other games, 4 games out of 6. Even in the Northwestern victory, just sporadic, especially with his accuracy on the sideline routes. I thought his accuracy was even better in the Rutgers game, even though they lost. I thought he showed improved accuracy in that game. He said it was improved accuracy afterwards. I'm like, yeah, it was. Now, cold weather might not be his thing. Talked about it before. doesn't have the biggest hands. Gripping a cold football could be challenging for someone like that. I don't know. But, again, all respect to him out there battling, doing his best for Michigan State. But today, for the second blowout in 3 games, the backup comes in and sparks them. And when you watch Peyton Thorne against that defense today and Lombardi against that defense, I don't know how you could look at it and not see that one quarterback was just more effective. Came in, the tempo was different, the reads were quicker. Thorne said after the game he wanted to take what the defense was giving him. He did that. A lot of times it was just the little sit down over the middle against zone. And then his feet got him out of trouble a couple times. After the game, he was very hard on himself, saying that he can't be throwing it to the other team on the one interception, can't be fumbling it. The fumble was on a 3rd and 2 zone read keeper conversion. Had moved the chains on that one and fumbled it. That hurt a little bit. Hurt quite a bit because Michigan State had a little momentum going. Not that they were going to come back in the game, but for future reasons, it would have been nice to see them not stop themselves and sustain it. He says he's got to grip the ball better and do better. But I like him as a competitor. He strikes me as the type of guy that Michigan State could come out and win a game. Maybe not this game, but win a game, and he's going to be like not satisfied. He kind of has. He's a little bit of that like firm, serious, not going to be easily satisfied. Personality-wise, reminds me of Bill Burke maybe a little bit.
Call from
Don from DeWitt.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, let's go out to DeWitt, Michigan. Don, thanks for calling in. I mean, thanks for that personal sponsorship for the show today. Really appreciate it, Don. Thanks a lot. What's on your mind, man?
Oh, my pleasure, Comp. It is worth every bit of it. To me, it felt like, there's some more growth today. You measured up against one of the very best, and, we obviously fell short, but, I still saw a few hopeful things out there. Some good plays. You take every good play you can at this point. It's such a weird year. I mean, how do you judge this football team? They're really where they should be as far as player evaluation, where they'd be after spring practice.
Well, we made that point before, and I think that's where they were after the Indiana game. Spring practice, a couple of games. I thought after the Indiana game, that's where they normally would be after the pre-conference season, prior to the first Big Ten season game of the year. That's where I thought they were, like November 10th. And that's when he started escorting some players to the transfer portal. That's when he started making some determinations and some decisions. He's still evaluating things. And I liked Mel Tucker's intensity after this game, waiving the 24-hour rule. Did you hear about that one, Don? Were you over it?
No, I did not see his after-game comments.
We've got that over at SpartanMag.com. I know you're a SpartanMag.com subscriber. We appreciate that. And
absolutely.
And give us a thumbs up here, people that are watching. Give us a thumbs up here for the YouTube channel here, SpartanMag.com channel. Subscribe to this channel. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Check us out over there. We'll have a lot of free content over there, especially for basketball season. Anyway, we've got Tucker's post-game press conference here at the YouTube channel and over at SpartanMag.com. And Tucker, you can just tell personality-wise that he's just bothered by anything that's not completely satisfactory. In that regard, reminds me of Saban a little bit. Saban was never happy and bothered personally by, about failure. I mean, frowning on failure. Every coach is that way. But some coaches, once they get to Saturday, game over, all right, blow off some steam, go home, maybe have some chocolate milk, sit down, watch a game, stew about it all night, come back to work the next day. Tucker said no 24-hour rule. He wanted his players to go home and watch the film on their laptops at home. And he said in the post-game press conference, as soon as I get out of here, I'm going over to the office to start the process right now. As we record this at 8:50 p.m. on Saturday night, Tucker might be over there. I drove by looking in to see but I couldn't quite see up to his office when I left the stadium. But bothered by it. And that's the great ones are bothered by things like that. He wanted to get back to work. Losing, okay, he doesn't like losing. He doesn't like 3 blowout losses. And I understand the 2 blowout losses, the turnovers. In Ohio State, they're going to blow a lot of people out. They were up big on Rutgers. Let them creep back into it. They were up big on Indiana. Indiana took them to task through the air quite a bit. But Ohio State, when they get things right, they'll do this to a lot of people. But he was bothered by it. He said, as you know, Don, 24-hour rule. It's been here. It's been in a lot of programs. After the game, 24 hours. Don't worry about anything else. Digest this game. And after 24 hours, on to the next game, on to Penn State. He was like, no 24-hour rule. On to Penn State right now after we get these corrections. Let's go to work right now. I thought he showed a little bit of his coaching soul there a little bit. I thought it was constructive. I thought it was good. I liked it. If I'm a Michigan State fan, I think it's good. You still there, Don?
Yeah, I missed some of your comments here with something, but yeah, I love the intensity. I love the attention to detail. I really think given time, they're going to give it right, but people have got to not, I mean, they can't judge on this bizarre season. They need to wait until next year when they've had the full cycle of the program done properly and see where we go next year. And also, I just, you look for, on just every individual play improvement. I think there were a lot of good things out there today, although obviously not enough. But, Jim, what do you think about score 38-10, fully in control? You still got Justin Fields in there and throwing up a bomb.
Well, at that point, what was the score at that time? 45-10?
38-10.
Yeah, 28-point lead, 8 minutes to go. I'm wondering, do they want to get, because Justin Fields had not had a great game to that point. And remember, he was coming off that tricky performance against Indiana, shaky performance, 3 interceptions against the Hoosiers. I was not offended by that if I'm a Michigan State guy. I see them trying to get a quarterback rolling a little bit. He had been contained all day, and he had missed a deep shot earlier with an open receiver. So I think they're just working on some things. Firstly, that's what I think it is. As a coach, sometimes these coaches never think they have enough points. They saw Indiana come back on them. Yeah. Now, after the Indiana game, Ryan Day told his team, hey, you guys have to learn to throw at these teams. You got to keep the pedal down because they had let Rutgers creep back and make it look respectable. They let Indiana come back and almost tie the game. In Nebraska, not so much. Nebraska was better earlier. The other game, Penn State might have crept back a little bit. So he was preaching after that game aggressiveness, kill mode. And he's not calling the plays for this game. I wonder if that was carrying out some of that ideology, kill mode, stay on it. I think that might be part of it. Secondly, I think they're trying to get Fields going. Thirdly, if Alabama loses to Florida in the SEC championship game, Alabama's going to have 1 loss. Ohio State, I assume, is going to be 7-0. And it's going to be an interesting vote who gets in. Alabama with 1 loss or undefeated Ohio State. Because Notre Dame's going to be in. Florida's going to be in if they win the SEC championship game. And Clemson. And unless Notre Dame beats Clemson again. But if Clemson beats Notre Dame, a lot of people think Notre Dame's going to get in with 1 loss because they've got the best win of anybody all season. Although Lawrence didn't play in that game. But you see what I'm saying? This could come down to a beauty contest between undefeated Ohio State and 1-loss Alabama. Nobody thinks Alabama's going to lose to Florida. But just in case, I wonder if that enters the thinking at all. In all, I am sensitive to teams running up the score. What's his name at Penn State has made a habit of it. And now I think the football gods are getting some revenge on him this year a little bit, and rightfully so. Jack Wagon in Ann Arbor, sore winner his whole career, ran it up on Rutgers 73-0, throwing it. That stuff is offensive to the sport of football. And I don't like that. And both of those guys are getting what they deserve from the football gods this year. In this case, I didn't see it that way one time. And then, later in the game, they were running it, trying to run out the clock. That one, I think they were just working on stuff. That's the way I saw it.
That's fair.
And you know what? I don't mind it for Michigan State either because Kalen Gervin had gotten beat by a step and a half earlier. And that's more reps for Gervin. He's going. I think it was Olave that caught that one. And Olave, he's difficult to cover. At 6'1", changes speeds, burst. Can go up and snag it. And on that play, Gervin on that one had him covered better. And that one, it was Chris Olave on that one. Gervin covered him better on that play than he had some of the other plays that got away from him that were incompletions. So his press coverage, go route, deep release. Turned, ran with him, had him decently covered. It was just a perfect ball and a real good grab by an excellent receiver. So Gervin got a little dinged up on that play, but that goes in the film, and that helps Gervin. I don't know if he's going to get better as a player. I don't know if he's going to hit his head on his ceiling of potential early in his career, but those are good reps for him too. Got beat, go back to work on it. So gave up a touchdown, but Gervin got some work too. I don't mind it.
I agree with everything you said, and I look at it as I can appreciate their wanting to get shots, as far as that, but it just kind of stuck in my craw that
well, you're a good man.
You're throwing that ball with Fields. It made my crowd watching here say, "Hey, too bad if Fields get hurt." Going forward here.
Well, now Don.
I can appreciate it.
You're a better man than that. You're speaking for the people in your crowd. You're speaking for the people in your crowd, not yourself, right?
I mean, it just I wouldn't want anybody to get hurt. Absolutely, in that regard. But it just stuck in my craw that he fired that long pass. But such as it is. Going forward, what have you seen to this point that you like about the Tucker program, and what needs work other than more recruits, more players?
The Tucker program, I go back to what Mike Tressel said about Mel Tucker when we had a Zoom press conference with Mike Tressel, I think mid-September before a game was played. And he was asked about his impressions of Mel Tucker. And he was impressed with how organized he was, his organizational skills, his organizational obsession. Not his word, but this is a guy who has a plan every day for everybody on their staff for recruiting and a plan for everything. And he's efficient with his time. Saban would not have hired him 3 times if he didn't like the way he worked, right?
Absolutely.
So this guy's task-oriented, knows the game, obviously, as a coach, coordinator in the NFL. When Kirby Smart went to Georgia, tagged him to be his coordinator to start up for the Bulldogs. That's quite an endorsement. So you combine the football knowledge with the organizational obsession and knowing that recruiting is the lifeblood. He's been at Alabama. He's been at Georgia. He's been at Ohio State. He knows what it's supposed to look like. The way he was talking 1 or 2 weeks ago about wanting to recruit so you can beat teams like that, it might have been last week prior to the Ohio State game, about recruiting, knowing what they look like, and wanting to get to that level. I've never heard a Michigan State coach talk like that. D'Antonio was great. And I thought D'Antonio, great coach and great man. Great for college football. Great for Michigan State University. And I thought he was 100%, D'Antonio was 100% correct with his initial construct on how to build the program. He saw teams with like resources that had done well. Iowa, Wisconsin. And he wanted to emulate that. And I thought that was the great way to do it. And I got in a little discussion with my buddy Tim Stout about that, because Stout's like, why do these coaches say that? They should just go after, try to be like Michigan. If you don't try to beat Michigan, you're never going to beat Michigan. Now, I checked Stout a couple of weeks ago, telling him he needed to get over his Michigan obsession, because he admitted he's intimidated.
Thank you.
Were you listening on the show that day? Because he said...
No, I missed it that day, but God, he finally has accepted.
No. He was like talking about that, he said that he needs to get over his intimidation of the University of Michigan. This is Stout. And people that don't know Tim Stout, he's a venerable sportscaster here in the Lansing, Michigan, has a daily talk show. I'm on it on Thursdays. It's a lot of fun. And Stout, I've got great respect for him. So Stout says And I bring him up because he says interesting things, which are interesting talking points that pertain to what we're talking about. But he says, he's got to get over his being intimidated by Michigan. And I said, you got to get over that because, that's just not the way it's been. Maybe from, he's still looking at it through the 1972 prism, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was criticizing.
Tim was one of Captain Khaki's biggest fluffers.
So he was saying, it didn't make sense. D'Antoni was talking about wanting to be as good as Iowa. And I said, no, it makes perfect sense. For Michigan State and what they had been under Bobby Williams, John L. Smith, be like Iowa, be like Wisconsin, and just be physical and try to be mistake-free, limit your mistakes, and win that way, which Perlis's teams were like that, plus when he had it going at his best. So I thought that was a great approach to get to that level. And oh, by the way, when D'Antonio said that about Wisconsin had won 3 Rose Bowls in the 1990s, if I'm not mistaken, or the 2000s, the early 2000s, I don't know, somewhere in there. You can say, I'm talking from a 2007 perspective. You could say chase Michigan, but actually chasing Wisconsin at that time on paper was more ambitious. But doing it the Wisconsin way, doing it the Iowa way was the right way for D'Antonio to do it. I thought that was great. And it worked out great. Meanwhile, Tucker comes in, and he's not saying that, which I don't think it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I've never heard a Michigan State coach come in here and say, I know what they look like. Talking about being at Alabama, LSU, and Ohio State, and Georgia. I know what it looks like. I know what you need to compete with those teams. And we recruit, he said, to get players with the size and the speed that can win their one-on-ones against those players. And I'm like that, thinking to myself, that's an ambitious approach. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it'll work, but I've never heard a Michigan State coach come in here and say that's what we're looking for, and we're not going to recruit anybody unless they can beat someone like that. And I've seen some of their commitments at this point, and some of those commitments are pretty good. Some of them I'm not sure are at that level. So you can say that's all you're going to get, but you and I both know there's a finite number of players that are at that level, and Alabama picks first. And there's not many of them on the tree. And Ohio State's right there picking them too. Don, you remember what it was like, even before, not even playing high school football, but even recess when you're in 5th grade, you go out to the playground and you're picking teams. And it's you and your friend. And you got 20 kids out there. And your friend gets to pick 15 times before you pick one. You're not going to win that game, right?
Right? No doubt, Jim. I mean, that's a perfect analogy.
You can't win.
I mean, no doubt about it.
Hey, Ohio State is full of 4- and 5-star recruits. They have good talent. Some of those guys, they haven't quite blossomed. Number 5, the linebacker, Baron Browning. He looks immaculate, about 245, 6'3", 245 linebacker. They put him in the slot. He'll cover wheel routes and run. Beautiful guy. Top 10 player in the country coming out of Texas. Rolls-Royce talent. But this is his first year starting. He looks good, just never, sometimes you have to wait your term at Ohio State. Well, that was the guy when Peyton Thorne, remember when he had that scramble and came out and broke a tackle and ran for about 31 yards on the field goal drive? The tackle that he broke was that impossibly beautiful 6'3", 245-pound linebacker who was a 5-star, 6.1 on the Rivals.com scale, top 10 player in the country. Nothing against Browning. I like him. But they win the beauty contest at every position across the board. Ohio State does. I thought Michigan State matched some of that with pure just intensity in that defensive line. They were solid today in a lot of ways. A.J.R. Curry got beat once on a sack, and that was the one when Lombardi was injured. A couple others I think were more of coverage type of sacks. It's not like that. It's not, and I know that Friday the defensive end was out. But it's not like Michigan State's quarterbacks were running for their lives in the pocket. It's not like Ohio State's receivers were just drag racing past the corners all day. It's not like Michigan State was having a little trouble getting open, but they had some open receivers here and there. The one-on-one battles, I didn't think Michigan State was totally outclassed in that regard. At the quarterback position, there was a huge difference for 2 quarters in this game, and that created the imbalance on the scoreboard, and it stayed that way the rest of the way. But we can talk for a long time about discrepancies in talent. That's college football right now. And Don, you'll notice on this show, I'll keep you on for 3 or 4 comments till someone else calls in or whatever. Most radio shows, they got to go to the next caller, go to commercial. We don't have commercials. We don't even take bathroom breaks here. If I got a cough, I'm just going to cough, and it's going to be ugly, and everybody's going to have to deal with it. But We'll keep. So if you call in, Let us know what you're drinking. I don't care, and we'll keep you on for 3 or 4 comments. If you got, unless you got any more, we'll let you go. Otherwise, and I'll get over to the chat area and we'll take some questions.
Maker's Mark tonight. Just great stuff, Jim. Great product at SpartanMag.com. And if you get a chance, talk about Captain Khakis and the paper program down the road.
Well, you use my term paper program because they're always so bent on looking good on paper. They always want to win the press conference. That's why Ward Manuel was so offended when Herb Street mentioned that the possibility that Michigan might want to duck out of the game with Ohio State. And
do you agree with me, since Herbie put it out there, that they almost can't not play now?
You might be right, because now it's a talking point. I mean, that's got to be off the table now. I'm not going to say if that was the case or not. Hey, I'll let you go, Don. I appreciate you calling in.
Call from
Matt.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2. To accept, press 1. To send a...
Hey, Matt, call back if you get a chance. Jack Doyle. I know who you are. I know where you are. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for your personal sponsorship tonight. Appreciate it a lot. Captain Khakis, is that what Don from DeWitt called him? Well, I mean, Ward Manuel getting upset about that. I don't want to talk too much about this. But trying to, paper program, I mean, they don't like it when people mess with their paper at all. So, Herb Street was saying that they might be wanting to duck out on Ohio State. And Manuel called Brock Heward and Herb Street. What are you talking about? You can't say that about us. We've won more games than anybody. 1867. We used to beat the Detroit Institute of Arts football team 5 times a year. We were 5-0 in 1918 and claimed that as a national championship during the Spanish flu year. We were national champions during the Spanish flu year. Do you hear me? Don't say that about us. Whoa. Take it easy. Take it easy, Ward. Have some dip. You'll be all right. Struck a chord with them. But paper program, that's how you react when you have a paper program. They're good. They've won some games. They were good back in the 1890s when the ball was round and you had 3 downs to go 10 yards. But you know what? I mean, in the 1500s, Spain had the best military on earth. I don't see Spain bragging about that. Anyway, let's go over here to the chat area. What we got? Let's take a look. KZ on Petty. Coming in quick. Appreciate that. It's a cool name, too, by the way. Detroit Spartan says, let's continue our text discussion comp. What is Tuck seeing? Seriously. All right. I can't do text while I'm on the air, my man. Blong John, positives. You can build a game plan around Thorne's skill set. Nice to see Fletcher continue to improve. Yeah, Michael Fletcher, good at defensive end out of Flint Carmen Ainsworth. I've not, of course, had a chance to really dive into the tape yet. I don't watch the tackle box a whole lot. He had that personal foul, which hurt on Ohio State's opening drive. Prolonged that drive, would have gotten off the field on 3rd down. For Michigan State to win this game, or to stay competitive, have to be perfect. And it starts with a play like that. It actually starts with the very first play of the game on 1st and 10, when Lombardi and Connor Hayward had a miscue on the handoff, first play of the game. Now it's 2nd and 10. You can't be putting yourself in 2nd and 10 on your own error, or 2nd and 11, as it were. To win this game, you got to be perfect in all those details. And those are easy details whether you're playing Ohio State or the JV team, or you're playing Akron. Those details have got to be hammered down from the jump. Fletcher coming in trying to make the play, forearm across the face. I didn't see whether he got pushed up into it. I'd have to look at it again. Expensive play, cost him 7 points. Ohio State has scored a touchdown on every opening drive all year. And Michigan State had them off the field, 3rd and 7, deep pass, incompletion in their own territory, punting, and Fletcher with a personal foul. Fletcher, good kid, a lot of effort. It'll be you'll have to look and see whether you think that's undisciplined. I would imagine it probably was. Tucker can make the judgment on that. But if you have the chances of remaining competitive, you can't let that happen. But Fletcher, for as lean as he is able to get upfield pretty well. And he's been stronger at the point of attack than I expected. Good straight line speed. I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that can turn the corner with hip flexibility and really round the hoop. If he could, he would have been a 4-star. And if he can, he'll be a draft pick. Nice one. But redshirt freshman on his way. Blong John says you can build a game plan around Thorne's skill set. And that was a point I made with Konendijk after the game of the VCast. If you are the defensive coordinator at Penn State, which quarterback would you rather go against, Lombardi or Thorne? I think you'd rather go against Lombardi, right? Nothing against Lombardi. I've got a lot of respect for him. But Thorne's got a little bit of a pace to him. He's got a little rhythm to him. I don't know. Maybe he'll get out there and when he starts 4 quarters, and maybe it won't look as good. I don't know. But he came in that game, and that game changed. And it was still Ohio State, still running their base defense, still had their starters on the field when he was out there. And he said after the game he took what the defense was giving him. Little, sit-down routes over the middle. Tyler Hunt had a couple of those. I thought one of his better passes was the incompletion on second down into the end zone during the field goal drive. He stood in the pocket for a second and did get some pressure on that one. Can't remember if they blitzed or not, but there was some pressure. And he stood down the barrel of pass rush knowing he was going to take a hit. Took a hit to make a throw. And it was a nice touch pass. Did it hang in the air a little too long? Maybe. I don't know. But number 23, Hooker, the safety for Ohio State, who's been terrible all year. But he made the best defensive back play of the day. Hooker did on that one. Came in and made a pass breakup, I think on Trey Mosley. But Peyton Thorne, staying in the pocket, not gun shy, took a hit to make a throw, accurate, touch. Hooker made a nice play. Could he have driven it there, gotten it there a little quicker? Did his eyes load up the safety to make a break on a little too soon? I don't know. He can probably make a correction on that. But that was an incompletion. 2 plays later, field goal. But that play right there showed me a little something. A couple times later, they have the ball, and he's throwing from his own end zone. Staying in there, hanging in there. Maybe hung one up in the air. Maybe got away. Could have been an interception there. Threw a 50-50 ball. But his pocket, I'd say pocket poise, is pretty good, especially for a redshirt freshman. The quickness, the quick feet is good. Get him out of trouble, elongate a play, turn a scramble into a gainer. Zone read option, 3rd and 2, picked it up, fumbled the ball. He's a little bit of a slight guy. He's a young guy still. So there was one other time when he got hit, he was slow getting up. It might have been that second down play. But 3rd down, got hit, fumbled. Got hit one other time, slow getting up. He's not as old as Rocky. Rocky, as everybody knows, was an excellent wrestler in terms of being physically put together, maybe even physical toughness. Rocky's got that. Peyton Thorne's a younger guy. Maybe he can get to that a little bit later, but he's got some feet, but not sure he's a guy you want taking 15 hits a game. Not sure he can take that. His dad was a big-time coach at the college level. His grandfather was a big-time coach at the Division III college level. Like he said today, he's okay with Michigan State waiving the 24-hour rule, wanting to get right into Penn State. Because he says, hey, I grew up, my dad was a coach. He said, Peyton Thorne said that. He said, when I grew up during football season, I basically never saw him. That's how busy he was. He understands that it's a 7-day-a-week thing. So he was ready to get right back into Penn State preparation. And I like the way he was operating. Tempo. And there were a couple times when he really drove a pass in with nice authority and some zip. On the 4th and 1 play, they had the bunch out to his right. His RPO, run blocking up front. He made the decision, no run play, and threw it out there to the now route out there. And good decision because it worked. Secondly, quick mechanics, zoom, getting it out there, boom, zip, accurate. I think it was Naylor, so the Naylor could catch it and get upfield and get the first down. When you're deciding on 4th and 1 to not go with the run play, that's a quarterback putting a lot on his shoulders to pull it out and zip it out now and get it. Correct decision, good zip, good accuracy. Liked it. And yeah, I agree. You can build something around him. Let me see. What do we have here? I'm gonna invite somebody to call right now. See if he does. But no, we haven't seen Nils yet. And Nils usually calls in with some observations. He's an astute Michigan State commentator. Nothing today yet. All right, let's go. Big Will says Mel Tucker needs to get rid of Jay Johnson at the end of the season. He's so predictable. I hope Mel Tucker makes a move. They better get someone better. Well, Jay Johnson's a little limited at the quarterback position, my man, in the first half. Predictable? I just talked about a 4th and 1 when they threw an RPO. That wasn't very predictable. They're going to run the ball. They're going to want to be physical, and there'll be times when you're thinking, why are they running the ball? They're not getting anything out of it. But, you know, if you want to be balanced, you can't give up on the run. Those 1 and 2 yarders at least keep the linebackers and safeties honest. So on play action fakes, it makes the pass game just a little bit easier. But predictable, I mean, you go watch Clemson tonight. They're predictable too. You know, a lot of teams run the same plays. Just some guys have Etienne and Trevor Lawrence and cats like that. But I appreciate your opinion, and thanks for posting. You know, Don from DeWitt called earlier, and he and I disagreed initially on the deep pass that Ohio State threw. But just because I disagree does not mean that you're wrong. I could end up being wrong. I'm not like that. If I think you're wrong, I'm usually not going to sit here and yell at you and try to change your mind. I completely respect the possibility and even probability that you're right and I'm wrong. So if I voice the other side, don't be offended by it. You know what I'm saying? And we can all... I don't like the term agree to disagree. I don't like that at all for some reason. I'm contradicting myself now because if you agree to disagree, that's essentially what I'm saying I'm doing, but I always hated that. I think I hated that back with some former jobs that I used to have when I would talk about something that needed to be done, and then they would just say, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, which meant you lose. We're not going to do it your way. I'm going to put a tweet out right now to invite some people. Appreciate your patience. Normally, this is where we would go to a commercial, but we don't have that. We're not that fancy, but we've got some. We've got a lot of subscribers across the country, and we appreciate every one of our Spartan Max subscribers. Jack Doyle, Don, thanks for your support. Mr. Boneman is here from Harper Woods. Mr. Boneman says no. Not too mad about today. Ohio State is a machine. I agree. Ohio State is pretty darn good. I was surprised watching them this week how shaky their pass defense was. That safety 23, not good. And they would just leave those guys out there against Indiana, and it never got better. I'm like, they're Ohio State. They don't have better people than that. D'Antonio would have had those guys out the field and second stringer in right now. So I was wondering about Kerry Coombs, their new defensive coordinator. Is he overmatched? I don't know. Maybe that'll prove to be the case later in the season. Michigan State did not have the firepower to test Ohio State and their weakness. When you have strength match up with weakness, you get disproportionate results, and you can have what happened when Ohio State played Indiana. Indiana, strength, wide receivers, Penix at quarterback. Strength versus weakness, they threw for 491. And Ohio State, I don't see them improving that a whole lot. I mean, they got to improve it some. But if they have to play against Alabama, if they played Alabama next week, Alabama would score 50-plus on Ohio State. And Ohio State's offense, you know, Teague he's a truck. He's got some physicality. And I know that Ohio State was without 3 key offensive linemen today. And I know Alabama does not have their best defense this year. I've not seen them in a few weeks, but the defensive front, not as good as it's been like 3 or 4 years ago. But this Ohio State team, I don't think they're within 2 touchdowns of previous Ohio State teams. I might be wrong about that. AG says, Jim, was this what the staff needed to see from Thorne for him to start going forward? Why do you think the staff went with Rocky to begin the year? Tony from Detroit. Well, I got to put my readers on. That's how old I am. Sorry about that. Well, I'd heard during preseason that Rocky Lombardi flat out was less prone to make mistakes than Peyton Thorne. So they went with the guy with a little more experience, less likely to make mistakes. And like I've said before, I thought that Rocky looked improved against Rutgers, even in a loss with all those turnovers. And then had the big game against Michigan. So it's like, wow, this guy's, and they love his leadership and his cool nerves. But then, since then, the Indiana game.
Call from
Chief Tunstall.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Chief Tunstall's a great name, but I don't recognize it. And, we've had some pranksters calling in here, and that's okay. There's some language that I laugh off, and there's some language that we can't laugh off. So, just made a judgment call, that's all. Just made a judgment call about Chief Tunstall there. And now I can't remember what I was talking about, so let's look at some of these other questions here. Okay, so I was talking about Rocky Lombardi. So we're not at practice. So I always give the benefit of the doubt to the coaches. They see practice. They are putting the people out there that they think can win. So Lombardi's obviously done enough in practice for him to get that initial nod. But in the game against Iowa with those interceptions, and then Indiana with a couple of interceptions, it kind of looked more like the Rocky Lombardi of last year, who a lot of us thought just kind of had limitations. And then Thorne gets in there in the second half against Indiana and did a little bit better. Let's see what he says.
Call from
Chief Tunstall.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
He's persistent, but I don't remember Chief Tunstall posting before. A name like Chief Tunstall, that's why I've got to get the caller block app to figure it out. So I was just running an option on that. He did call back, though, so that persistence, maybe I'll call him after the show, see how he's doing, and screen him that way. But Chief Tunstall, thanks for calling, and maybe we'll catch you next time. But all I can say is, in practice, they must be seeing one thing, because in these 2 games against Indiana and against Ohio State, there was a big difference between Peyton Thorne and Lombardi. And Thorne is 2 years younger, not as much experience, but still operates quicker, more accurate with his passes, decisive. I mean, Lombardi with some of those passes out to the sidelines, the way they're missing on some of those, it really does not look like most other quarterbacks that you see. He misses in a fashion that you don't see from other people. Got a lot of respect for him, wish him the best. But as an observer, I'm kind of curious to see what it would look like for Peyton Thorne to start the game against Penn State. You've got 1 game left, possibly. We don't know if there's going to be games after that. There's supposed to be, but you don't know for sure. If you're taking inventory of the program, I would think you would like to take a look at what it looks like and what Peyton Thorne looks like when he's got the keys to the car, the offense, all week during practice week. Your keys, go do it. But those people know more about football than I do. Just selfishly, I'd like to see what it looks like. Troy S. says, Michigan State.
Call from
Old Tuck.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Now, we know Old Tuck, so we'll go to Old Tuck, no problem. Now, Old Tuck, turn down your whatever
Yep.
you're watching it
I
on.
turned it down.
All right. Old Tuck, happy Saturday, my friend. Welcome to the SpartanMag.com postgame call-in show. It's open mic night. You got the floor.
That's right. I figured this Chief Tunstall called in, and I figured we'd get an old regular in here, like Old Tuck, to kind of crowd him out for a minute.
I've got some.
I'm
optimistic about Chief Tunstall. I'm optimistic. I'm not going to close the door on him just yet, but you've got a vetting process here. You understand that, Old Tuck?
Yeah, absolutely. He could be a good little guy, and maybe he'll call in again.
We believe in you. We believe in you.
I was going to talk, a little bit of run defense at the linebacker level, Comp. I think about Raymond Harris and Pepe Pearson, and even I think they had a good back named Wiley, number 5 back in the day.
Michael Wiley.
And
Number 5.
And these, our linebackers. What's your take? And we know Simmons is a good linebacker. I'm just curious what your take is on our linebacker, the level of play there. It seems like the run game obviously isn't, or run defense isn't what it was with D'Antonio, and there could be different reasons for that. And I'm also curious, our recruiting at the linebacker position seems to be a little bit different than it has in years past. It was a strength for a long time, and I don't know if it's not necessarily a weakness now, but it seems like our recruiting isn't a priority at the linebacker level. So if you would talk about what you see there, I'm curious, because
as far as linebacker,
seems like there's some softness at that second level.
Yeah, as far as linebacker recruiting goes, with Mel Tucker, recruiting is a priority at every position, and so they'll be going for it there. They just got a commitment from a guy that's technically a 2-star from Alabama, but I watched him. I don't know if you saw his film this week, Carson Castile from Florence, Alabama. I was impressed. 6'2.5", 6'3", he's got a frame and some decent initial quickness, hands to defeat a block, and then runs, and then has an extra gear running. The closing speed had just a little bit extra taste of closing speed. He's not a 2-star. He looks to me like a 3-star, which I don't know if people care about that. I could be wrong. The evaluators could be wrong. He was committed to Troy, and Troy State, sometimes they have teams, they've had some good mid-major teams down south in recent years, and they have to do it on evaluation. And I promise you that Troy State was hoping to keep that guy quiet. And I promise you Troy State was groaning when Michigan State started contacting him and offered him a scholarship. So I'm not saying he's great, but I'm not one of these guys that just looks at stars and says, "Why are you recruiting that guy?" Now, if he looks like a 2-star guy and his film looks like a 2-star guy, I might have some reservations about that. And I'm trying to think of some examples of that. Anyway, I'll have to think about that longer. But so linebacker recruiting is going to be a priority. They went after those guys. There were some good in-state linebackers in Michigan this year. Bud and the kid from Belleville committed to Penn State. So it was a priority. They made him a big-time priority. So they're trying to get the best. So, in terms of the current linebackers, Antoine
what about
Simmons,
number 33? Did he play a bunch last week?
No, Just Lord Boateng.
Can't think of his name right.
Just Lord
Yeah,
Boateng.
I thought I saw him on the field a bunch last week.
No, he didn't play last week. He played. He played this week a couple of snaps. I saw. I'll have to go back and look to see how he looked. He's not gotten on the field yet. He was on the field shortly after Chase Klein had that personal foul. So he's an inside linebacker. They've played 3 inside linebackers this year, as you know. Noah Harvey, Chase Klein, Antoine Simmons at 2 positions. 3 guys at 2 positions. So the 4th guy is Just Lord Boateng, and he hasn't quite gotten in there yet. Got in there today. Maybe he's making progress. I don't know. I know that Mike Tressel liked him last year when Tressel was a linebackers coach. Now Tressel coaches the safeties and the nickel. He coaches 3 guys, 3 positions. So Simmons, he's good. I mean, Simmons is a sports car that plays hard. He's intense. Noah Harvey struggled at the beginning of the year with some gap errors, gap integrity, gap assignments. And I thought at the time that he was having trouble seeing things when Michigan State 2-gapped in front of him. When you 2-gap, the defensive linemen are head up on a guy, and they're head up, and they try to displace. And the linebackers have 2 gaps to read also. So there's a read and react. There's a knack to that. as opposed to one gap where a defensive lineman is just going straight into the gap full bore. And when they do that, a linebacker has one gap. And it's easier mentally to just know you've got that gap when you're one gapping. It's a little harder with two gapping. There's a little bit more hieroglyphics you have to read. It's a little bit different version of a Tetris game, if you like to, an analogy, if you may, as it were. Yeah. But so I thought Harvey struggled with that the first couple of games. I thought he was better last week. He's gotten better as he goes along. Today, I didn't notice any gap errors from Harvey, but they ran away from him a couple times athletically. After the game, Tucker was talking about the problems that Michigan State had playing defense against the quarterback, the zone read play, whether it be the quarterback or the give to the tailback. It was quarterback zone read when they handed it to Trey Sermon, the transfer from Oklahoma, when he got loose for the 64-yard touchdown. We talked about this in the VCast. On that play, they had five offensive linemen. Hey, Detroit. Hey, Old Tuck, do you have any other questions before I go to the next caller?
Nope, I'm all good, Tom. Thanks.
Appreciate Old Tuck.
Callie Spartan.
Appreciate Old
To
Tuck.
accept, press 1.
In.
To send a voicemail, press 2.
Let's go out to Callie Spartan in Detroit, Michigan. Callie Spartan, I'll get with you in a second. I'm gonna finish a thought about linebackers here. So Tucker said after the game, in terms of Michigan State's problems playing defense on the zone read option, whether it be the quarterback keeping it or whatever, he says, it's technique, fundamentals. Sometimes maybe we're getting out-athleted, was his term. We understand what that means. And later on he said, we'll look to see if it's a technique that we aren't athletic enough to carry out. In other words, you are what you are. So on the last play when C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, ran away from Noah Harvey, C.J. Stroud ran pretty well. And you might remember he's a California quarterback that Michigan State got in on last winter and had a pretty good shot at him until Ohio State came in later and offered, and some others came in and offered. But he looked pretty quick. Stroud did. Playing the first time in his career, fresh at the end of the game. Also, all that adrenaline, playing for the first time for his first college touchdown. Noah Harvey had been in there banging for 50 or 60 plays. So running away from Noah Harvey at that stage of the game is a little bit different than running away from him earlier. However, Tucker was upset with that play. He says that's a play that everybody runs. We run it. We see it in practice all the time. He would have liked to have seen that thing get squeezed down a little bit better. I'd have to look at. I've not looked at that play again, but that's what Tucker said about it, and it directly speaks to what you're talking about at the linebacker position. Now, on the 64-yarder by Sermon, zone read option. Was it 3rd and 1 on that one? Was that third down? Callie Spartan, do you remember that? Was that 3rd and 1 on that play? Do you remember that one, Sermon? I can look it up here real quick.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
I'll look to see what down it was, but anyway.
Dude, it could have been 1st and 20. He was going to get that regardless.
Well, if it's it's the down changes what you're doing on defense, and what Michigan.
No, can I just jump in here, because we're talking like if that was Northwestern and it was 1st and 20, I wouldn't have said that. Ohio State, it goes to what Tucker was talking about in the press conference. Our fan base needs to realize a key reality right now. We don't have the horses. We got some guys that can do some things, yeah, but I mean, it's obvious, man. Like, a lot of this stuff had nothing to do with people being in opposition. Had nothing to do with, like, we have guys who are strong enough, yeah, but dudes were like Justin Field. There were several plays where Justin Field was rushed out of the pocket and people were coming to him, and it looked like he didn't even realize he had pressure. You understand what that means?
Yeah, he's special.
Like,
he's different.
Like,
he's different.
No. I'm not talking about just his ability. I'm talking about guys were not moving fast enough for him to register he had a threat to happen to him. Like, we got like, I saw Naquan Jones push a guy like the center off the line several times. We got strong guys. Fletcher was doing work. We got strong guys. He took that left tackle for a ride. Like, we've seen the guys get upper body strength. We like he said, the linebacker's position. Other than Simmons, we don't have anybody who has any type of speed in linebacker play. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about a particular guy named Klein, because Klein today was a space cadet. I'm not going to call him a bad name, but he was a space cadet. Like that I'm sure you talked about earlier. I was on the other one chat waiting for you to come on, so I don't know how long you've been talking. But he sat there, and it's ridiculous. You saw Xavier Henderson talking to the ref. It's like he threw his hands in the air because, like, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the cupboards aren't bare. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in order for us to win at the level that people have this strange idea that we should be winning at right now, despite the fact we have done it in several years, is we have the coach now who doesn't have the hang-ups that the last regime had near the end, and that is he wants to get dogs. He's not going to put up with BS because he kicked Fulton and Wolke's brother off the team. But he wants people who are going to do the work. He wants people who have the speed. He wants people he can build a winning team with. And we don't have that. We can win some games. Yeah, we can scheme up a few things here and there. But you can't drop bombs on Ohio State. They got faster guys, or they got guys who can at least keep up, if not faster than our receivers. So that rocky strategy that want to beat Northwestern or Michigan, that's not going to happen. Thorne was great for this game because we needed to dink and dunk. I mean, and he has the accuracy to do that. Is he young? Yes, but he's going to learn. But I mean, again, I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in the fact that, and this is the last time I've been about this, hopefully I'm not a liar. I'm disappointed in the fan base's seemingly unflexibility to understand that I watched them for 3 or 4 years make all these excuses for what was happening in the program. But for some reason now they're not patient when we have a new coach. We have a new coach who didn't have anything, had no time. He just got there. He's admitting he's open. We wish our old coaches were open about where our team was. Literally saying we don't have the horses. Literally saying I don't know who my guys are. Literally saying we're just trying to install these things. We got like maybe 33%, half of the playbook in. It's absurd. Like the level of rope we gave, but now we can't give that to somebody who's trying for us again. Like actually trying. Like this dude is like angry. He's showing emotion. And I'm sitting here just like we as a fan base, we talk about having heart, being Spartan dogs, being a family. And when you have something building, you got to be supportive. You got to understand stuff's going to happen. I mean, is everything perfect? No. So, could certain things be done different in certain games? Absolutely. But we see progress here and there. Like, for example, people talking about Collins playing more. If you look at it today, he actually had the best yards per rush per percentage of everybody. He was like 4.6 yards a carry, 4.4, something like that. Like, we've seen progress. He's getting back into it. I mean, but you can also say that Hayward was looking a little scared today. You're 230 pounds. Why didn't you run over the DB who was one-on-one coverage with you? You could have got at least 2 or 3 more yards. Maybe you break him down by going forward and you actually get the first down. I don't know. But what I'm saying is we have a lot of things that we can build on. But people have to understand they need to be patient. What was that? I read your comment in one of the posts saying, agreeing with one of the posters talking about, you win, you lose big the first year, you lose a little the second year, you win a little the third year, and you win big the fourth year. We are not in a situation where we got to sit there and be like, why are we not in the third or fourth year right now? I mean, it's absurd. And until this cycle comes around, and we get this new rotation of players in, this is going to be the way it is for a little bit. I mean, we can look back, like people are like, what do you do with Colorado? He didn't do anything. He had 2 recruiting classes. In that class, those 2 recruiting classes that are there now are either at the top or near the top for scoring in Pac-12 and they're undefeated. So we see that he has an eye for talent. We see that he can build programs. He's done it in multiple places. Like, just give the man time. And Comp, I know I'm just rambling on the show, but these are just a lot of things that I see are going on right now.
Go ahead and preach, man. Preach. A lot of people in the congregation are telling you to go ahead and just keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. I mean, it's just a lot of mental midgetry going on with the fan base, and I'm not trying. I wasn't trying to say anything disparaging to like shorter people, but like it's just mentally we need to. I'm not trying to be like fun. I don't want to make fun. I don't want anyone to be offended. I'm just saying that
I got you.
You can't be out here talking about you're like, it's just, I feel like our fan base got the Michigan sickness, where you're just looking constantly at, like, well, why are we doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we've been pointing it out for years. Like, I'll give a couple examples. So when we're talking about, like, this game was a macrocosm of like what to expect. Angelo Gross who was making plays this game, but he also made freshman mistakes. And what do you always preach? Nick Saban says, every time you got to start or play a freshman, you're going to lose a game. So we've played.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
Like every time you start a freshman, count that as a loss. We're starting a lot of new guys. Even if they aren't freshmen, we're starting essentially freshmen. We got guys who have never played these positions before. We got tight ends who are kickers who are starting.
Third string walk-on punters starting to tight end. He's doing okay, but true though.
Yeah, like they're doing okay, but that's not what they came here for. And shout out to our tight ends coach, because he's made apple pie out of like apples. You know what I mean? Like we as much as we talk about this coaching staff and like just being so new and everything, their guys are starting to look okay. And the great thing about that is these guys are the guys who aren't going to be here. Like these third and fourth string guys we're seeing playing all that other stuff and are going to be gone. Like there's nothing in my mind that tells me that we're gonna just keep retaining people. We're going to get people in here who are going to be hungry and say this: if they don't work out, I don't expect them to be here the season after that either. If you're not going to put in work, if you're not going to be here trying to win championships, like Mel Tucker said last week, I'm recruiting to beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
And that's not a crazy thing to say, because if you want to get to the playoff, you got to beat Ohio State. If you want to win a national championship, you got to beat Ohio State. Like this is if people want that, they have to embrace that's the process we're in now. No more of this like, we're all holding hands and we're getting choir boys and we just want guys who just want to be Michigan State Spartans. We are getting guys who want to be Spartans but want to win championships. I'm not like this. Like Noah Harvey, for example, he's a good guy. I like how he hits, but he would be a second and third string guy on a championship team. Like Simmons is probably the only guy who could play, maybe start for Ohio State that's on the defense. Like I could see Hunt and I can see Fletcher probably be in the rotation. I can see Jones be in the rotation. But everyone else outside of like Shakur Brown would not be starting for Ohio State. He's good. He's not that good. Xavier Henderson will probably be in the rotation. Like what I'm saying is, like you can't beat people if your guys are actively replacing guys in their team. Like that's just it, man. Like they had third string offensive linemen just destroying us today. Like I saw guys get pushed off the line. There were times when obviously we were able to get some push and everything like that, but this is third string. Like we should be seeing dudes just destroying them, like flipping people in the air. It should be cartoonish. It is not.
Well, interestingly, you might remember you follow recruiting. There was an offensive lineman named Gavin Cupp out of Ohio.
Yep.
Committed to Michigan State,
mm-hmm.
and then he flipped to Ohio State. I don't think he ever started a game for Ohio State, but I think he's a fifth-year senior, and he's one of the guys that was in there at mop-up time for them. So you're talking about a guy that Michigan State had, and then Ohio State just picked him, because when Ohio State recruits, especially in the state of Ohio, they don't recruit. They play duck, duck, goose. They all sit in a circle, and they walk around, and they pat him on the head, and they're like, Buckeye, Buckeye, Buckeye. And they just take their pick, right? One of them was Gavin Cupp. Buckeye, come to Ohio State, sit for 5 years. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's wild about that? That Cupp would have been starting today for Michigan State.
Last year, too.
And he was.
And the year before that.
And he was. And that's the reality. Like I wish our fan base could just see and understand the fact that what you just said should be pissing people off. That a guy who was an afterthought at OSU just happened to just play today, who was supposed to be at Michigan State, and he still looked better than guys who have been practicing with the ones for our team.
Well, I would disagree with you about them pushing Michigan State around. Now they ran away from, the quarterback Stroud, ran off against Harvey, and Harvey had been through a tough game and a taxing season so far. Fresh legs against, a guy that got hit. But I'd have to watch it again. I'm not so sure those backup offensive linemen for Ohio State were pushing Michigan State around as much as you're saying. So you might be right, but I'm not going to take that as fact right now. But a lot of
all
what
right,
you're saying,
I'll go back a little bit then. Maybe it wasn't as the way I'm saying as much as my heart is telling me. I'm remembering the game, and I remember Jones and like a couple of our guys getting into them sometimes. But I also remember seeing like, oh wow, they're getting 2 yards of push on some of these plays, and it's like that's the thing. When you're seeing O-linemen pushing 340-pound guys off the line, like Jones and Mallory and things like that, that's a problem.
I didn't see.
I
thought that Michigan State's defensive line was like the one area where Michigan State, sparred pretty good with them up front. That's the way I saw it. I'd have to watch it again, but I kind of thought that was the one area.
I'm not saying it was the entire game. I was like I pointed out earlier, like Fletcher took the left tackle for a while. He flipped him. That was where he got that penalty because he pushed him all the way into field. Like remember that at the beginning of the game. Like so, we have talent, but I'm saying is that was on a play. Like I can point out numerous plays when I'm just like, why? Like, what's going on? Like, it just looks like they were just kind of like holding people. Like, it almost looked like holding, like how well they were just making sure our guys weren't getting the field at times. But like you said, our defensive line was okay, but everything else was just kind of like, what's going on? Like, our defensive backs, they were okay, but at the same time, it wasn't like championship stuff. Like, it's a clear talent gap. I'm just frustrated, Comp. I'm like, you see what we see, where we don't know everything that's happening, but it's a clear disparity. Like, we need linebackers. I wish we could take 5 this class. I don't care where they come from, honestly, because it can't be worse than what's going on right now. I mean, knock on wood. But like, other than that, man, like, we hung in there for a while, and when Thorne came in, we looked better offensively, but we're still a whole offense away from being relevant again. Like, I wish we had an off season. I just want to get this season over with, honestly, get the new recruits in, see what's going to happen. Cause like, I think we have the staff to really push forward in terms of that. And that's just kind of how I feel, Comp. So I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we lost. I'm disappointed in the board, honestly, because I'm tired of arguing with some of these people about stuff that's just nonsense. Like, how do you sit here and like pick and choose what kids you want to talk bad about, knowing parents and families are watching the board? And that's just not in football.
Yeah,
that's in basketball.
You
know exactly what I'm talking about.
As you know, I'm very hesitant to criticize any athlete, any young man that's out there, scholarship athlete, walk on. First of all, they're better athletes than I ever dreamed of being, and I've got great respect for the work that they put in. Secondly, if you're a Michigan State person, these are people that visited other campuses and decided to come to your school and represent your school. And they've bled and sweated for your school more than you have. Most 99% of the people that I'm pointing at right now, they're representing your school. They believed in Michigan State. They loved Michigan State. They want to be a part of Michigan State. So don't make Michigan State worse for them by ripping on them as players. That gives them a bad feeling about Michigan State. They came to Michigan State. You can criticize them and point out this guy's not good enough and whatever, but don't be getting mad at them and calling them out and things like that.
Yeah, I've said things. Like I've said things about players.
This is not.
I've said things about players. I just don't. I'm not talking about them as a person.
Right.
Like I'm saying, for example, I've been kind of tough on Kithier this year, but I'm not going to go out there and say that he's like a waste of space or like what is going on. I'm like, dude, these people's families see this.
Yeah.
Like, have you've seen the board with? I know this is not basketball right now, but like people just talking out the side of their neck about Atkins and Amani, like they actually know what's going on. I'm like, number one, if you want these kids to come here, you need to chill, because if they work things out and they look on the board, it's a problem. Off rip, because they're like, who are these people we're talking about? They're like, that seems insignificant, but these, just like how these are, you're overreacting as an adult, these are children. Mm-hmm. These are teenagers who are trying to learn everything else about the world like you. We don't need, like, we as a fan base don't need that. We're not winning national championships left and right. We can't afford to have bad press come from our side. And it's just like, I don't know what I forgot what the guy's name was on Twitter who runs like Spartan Hoops. I'm like, what gives you the audacity to think that it was a smart idea to post what you post as a video talking about you're taking sides between Amani and Atkins when from all intents and purposes, unless they laid out an official statement, you're making yourself look like an idiot. Because if they work this out, which I assume they will, now it looks like you're pointing out a rip that wasn't there, and now you look like a bad reporter. And now you're making the fan base look like we're a bunch of freaking idiots, like we went to Michigan or something. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make any logical sense why anyone would say anything about somebody they don't know, like it's fact.
Well, now
about a team, about players.
You're right, and I'll say this: you're upset with the fan base, and you're talking about the fan base as they voice their opinions. Where?
Say again?
You're voicing your displeasure about fans and the opinions that they're having about the coaching staff or whatever and not winning based on opinions that you've seen or heard. Wait. Based on where have you seen those opinions? Where have you heard them?
So if you look at the Final Four but
you're talking about basketball. You're talking about internet message boards, right?
Yeah, but we've talked about this before. Like, everyone knows a lot of people's players and families watch the board.
Yeah, they do.
Right? And like, some of that stuff can be very alienating, and some of that stuff can be like, why would I come here? Why would I subject myself to this before I even get there? Like, I know it sounds petty, but if you're on the fence, you don't want to have a bad day and check something like that or have someone get back to you saying, or, for example, some people on the board get information, and now you're looking just not trustworthy. None of it, from top to bottom, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I can tell you right now that there's a player that committed to another school and went to that school's message board, and the people on that message board were angry that program took him. Why are we taking that guy? He's only ranked he's only a 3-star. His only offers were Michigan State and whatever. And he's still committed to that school. But he's like, man, that rubbed him the wrong way. I don't know if he still feels that way, but the fan base gave him a cold feeling. And you're right, that can have an impact. My point is that it's your perception about fans being upset with Michigan State coaches, and you're saying that they should have more patience. I agree with you. But your perception is based on a few posts that you've seen on an internet message board. My point is, 15 years ago, those message boards didn't exist, right? And talk shows were just starting. So in this modern era where, immediate gratification, everything is expedited, sped up, and everything's turned up to 11 right away, that's the way things are today. And people that are actually running things need to understand that. However, they're feeling that from donors also. So it's up to donors to understand, hey, yeah, Perlis went to a Rose Bowl, but he never would have gotten to year number 5 in today's wilderness. You know what I'm saying? Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech did great things. Best coach in the history of the program. If he were starting today, he would have been fired by year number 4 and never become Frank Beamer. Mike Krzyzewski would have never become Mike Krzyzewski. Those guys would have gotten fired in 3 years. Tom Izzo was close, and that was at the beginning of the internet. I thought he was done in year number 3, and then they rallied that year. But your point is well taken, and some fans are like that. But I would caution that it's not the majority of fans. I think most fans.
I appreciate that,
I think most fans realize it's year number 1, and they're not his players. And you talk about some of the players that they're having to use, like Noah Harvey, who's doing his best, and some of these other guys, Rocky Lombardi, doing his best. It reminds me when D'Antonio took over, he had some good talent, but like in year number 2, they had to take Ryan Allison from wide receiver and turn him into a linebacker. And Brandon Denson, a walk-on, and he was a starting linebacker. So they were doing some shape-shifting and manufacturing, and that's kind of the way it is when you take over a program that was not flying high. Noah Harvey was a 2-star recruit from Wisconsin, and he was thin. And the Badgers, I think, were kind of hoping he'd be a walk-on. He came in, he's worked hard, and it was up to him this year to do his thing, and he's done his best, and he's gotten a little bit better. Today, now Old Tuck when we brought you in, Old Tuck had come in and asked about linebacking. And it's not what you're used to seeing at Michigan State. The scheme is different. That play that got out for a 64-yard touchdown, in the old scheme, you would have had 2 safeties back and a linebacker kind of in the slot area, but 2 inside linebackers in the middle. Of course, Michigan State has taken one of the linebackers off the field to be better against pass defense, and pass defense in some ways has been better, definitely better than it was last year. But when a running back breaks through, you've got one safety in the middle. You know as well as I do, very infrequently would you see Michigan State in single safety deep man-to-man on 3rd and 1 in the D'Antonio era. 3rd and 1, running back breaks through, and it's Trey Sermon, who was pretty good at Oklahoma when he transferred to Ohio State, and he's got one guy, Trey Person, in middle field safety, and he has all that green space to avoid him to go the distance. You just know, watching Michigan State for a long time, that's not the way D'Antonio would have played it. I'm not saying D'Antonio was right and these guys are wrong. You have to go by what you want to stop and where you want to put your strength. Michigan State would go 2 safeties deep and 2 linebackers, but Michigan State under D'Antonio was always real weak in the slot area, and opponents would just throw to the slot like Baylor did 17 times. So you got to pick your poison. On defense, there's 12 holes and you got 11 pegs. You decide, where am I going to put my 11 pegs? And you're going to be weak somewhere. Michigan State, the way they're doing it, I think they're playing good defense over the long haul this season, but that's not the last time you're going to see somebody get out for a 64-yard run. It's going to happen. Just like against Rutgers when they ran that quarterback draw untouched for a 25-yard touchdown. When you take a safety and put him on a slot receiver and go man-to-man across the board, and on that play, it was short yardage. It was 3rd and 1. They had the 5 offensive linemen and 2 tight ends. So that's 7 players. There's 8 gaps. Michigan State pretty much had like a gap 8 front. They had 8 guys up there, single safety deep, and everybody up. So Antoine Simmons was doing a run blitz on that play. Some of the guys were 1 gapping and some guys were 2 gapping. Deshaun Mallory was 2 gapping, and he was controlling his guy. In retrospect, if you look at it, Deshaun Mallory was controlling probably 2 gaps, and they ran the other way anyway. So they were okay there. But Simmons was run blitzing in the middle, which it's not his problem. It's not his fault. And hindsight's 20/20. I'm not saying it's wrong. But as the play progressed, it ended up being overkill inside. Michigan State had more players inside. I know it was 8 gaps, but Mallory had 8 players for 8 gaps, and Harvey was one of them. Simmons was run blitzing. That's why he was not in the alley. When he broke, there was no linebacker running parallel to the line of scrimmage to cut him off before he got out, because that linebacker was Simmons and he was in, and they're playing with 2 linebackers. One of them was Harvey at the point of attack. He was unblocked on the edge and getting optioned, zone read option. If he goes after Sermon, then the quarterback keeps it. Now the quarterback's outside. Same problem. So structurally, Harvey, I don't think, played it incorrectly. The other linebacker was spent on an interior run blitz, which takes him out of alley pursuit. So, when D'Antonio or Tucker, they talk about, we have to look at film and see if the breakdown was a mental breakdown, a physical breakdown, or a structural thing. Mental breakdown, maybe someone made a mistake.
Right.
Maybe it's a physical thing if the guy's not. Maybe it's a mental thing if the guy made a mistake. It's a physical thing if he's just not physically capable of doing it. It's a structural thing if the play they ran against the assignments, it just wasn't really, it wasn't going to work out for you on that play. As it, a single safety deep.
Let me just say this.
Single safety deep against a run blitz inside. Zone read option is kryptonite to that. You know what I'm saying? So it got out and that happened. But you're still right. Linebackers are not where they need to be. But let me say this also. On the edge, I know he didn't always play outside linebackers, more of a middle linebacker, but even the great Max Bullough wasn't going to make that tackle on that play when you get him in space like that. So,
right. And let me say this like that. Let me hop off. I appreciate you walking me off the edge about the entire fan base. The people need to chill out.
It's not everybody. Yeah.
It is what it is. The linebacker core. Our linebackers were recruited and built to be just basically run stuffers. That's what Mark was using linebackers for primarily, because we always talked about.
And I'll stop you right there. I'll stop you right there. Noah Harvey was brought here to do that. And if he were playing in the old system where he was just one gapping, I think he would have been okay. I think so he's had to learn a new system which has, they're asking their linebackers to cover a little more ground and be more of a sports car. Not what he's built to do. He's doing his best. He's what they have, and he's been okay. And I thought he was pretty good against Northwestern. And I think they've been better as they've done more one gapping. But you're exactly right. He was recruited to a different system.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Cup. I hope I take too much of everybody's time, and I'm looking for better days, man. But We play a game tomorrow against Western, so right back on it. So you guys have a good one.
I would disagree with you about one thing when you said you wish the season was over and just get on to next year. I'm with Mel Tucker. I'd like to see more games, take more inventory, get them on the field. More guys can learn. Kalen Gervin gave up a big one today. Good. Get on the field and let's test them deep some more. Let's get Peyton Thorne, let him start. Let's see what that looks like. Connor Hayward did not run as hard today. I think it was you said that he didn't run as hard as he did last week. Not sure why. Elijah Collins, maybe he's getting a little more traction. Maybe we're not going to leave him up, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe he's got something that can aspire to be the 1,000-yard rusher we thought he was last year, we as observers. So I want to see more football, and I hope they get out there and go up to Happy Valley next week. And I hope there's some snow flurries too, by the way, just because I like it.
I hope they win next week. Have a good one, Kyle.
All right, man, there goes Callie Spartan. That's a long call. That's the way we do it here, people. If you're just joining in, hey, if you call in, we give you the floor because it's open mic night. Unlike most shows, it's not like you get one comment and you're gone. Like it or not, we might let you ramble a little bit. And Callie Spartan always has some interesting thoughts. And we've been going for a while. We might have to shut it down in here in a minute. We've been going for a while. Old Tuck, I'm gonna go back up here to the message board and see what's going on. A&M, Florida, Georgia are good, Peyton Fleetmeyer says. Going back to some old comments here. Troy S. says, Ohio State had over 300 yards rushing. Our run defense sucked. Big Will says, do you think Michigan State will play more 4-3 next year or even some 3-4? No, I think they're sticking with the 4-2-5. I think that's what they're going to do. I think they might want to be able to morph to a 3-4 and have that flexibility because, Alabama and Georgia have had that in the past, and it would not surprise me if Mel Tucker would like to have some of that in the future. At Kansas State last year, there were 4 downs. Sometimes the defensive end would stand up, but he's still playing a down defensive end, 5 technique out there. It's not like a 3-4 where he's wider outside as an outside linebacker. He's a 4-down guy. I never saw what he did at Wyoming. I'm assuming he's going to stick that he's been a 4-down guy, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tucker, with his past influence, might want to do that against some teams if you have 3 guys across the front that can all 2-gap with some strength. And they've got some guys that can do that. 300 yards rushing, Troy S. says that our run defense sucked. Statistically, you're right. And I would point out that they ran for like 320 or whatever it was, but they got 156 yards of that on 3 plays. They got half of those yards on 3 plays. They ran it 48 times. They ran the ball 48 times. And they got half of their yards on 3 plays. The 64-yarder, the 44-yard zone keeper, and the 48-yard zone read keeper. The 48-yard zone read keeper was already over by then. The 44-yarder on the zone read earlier in the game, they optioned Jack Camper on that one. And Camper saw it coming, and he was outside. And Shakur Brown was the corner. And does Shaq Brown need to do better to get off that block? Possibly. And as it was getting out downfield, Shaq Brown came inside and it cut on the outside of him. Technique-wise, they're going to say you got to stay outside, build a wall, funnel it back to the middle. Shaq Brown's a great player on that one. He's trying to make a play. They always say do your job, just do your job and trust that a teammate's going to do his. I think they want to build a wall and funnel it back to the middle on that one. Camper was being optioned. And Camper against Justin Fields, it's like when Rocky Balboa was trying to catch a chicken and he couldn't catch a chicken. Well, in that play, Justin Fields was the chicken and Camper was Rocky Balboa and he couldn't catch a chicken. He couldn't catch a chicken. Jack Camper's going to lose that chicken chasing match on that one. So Camper was playing it and he forced it back inside. Now, Antoine Simmons shot a gap. Was he correct on that? I don't know. Maybe, probably. You need your safety. Your first unblocked guy is a safety. Xavier Henderson, who was busy that game, had 9 tackles, played really well early. On that one, I'd have to look to see his tackle, his pursuit angle. Was it a straight line to the ball carrier? Did he banana peel it? Understanding that Justin Fields, first of all, is pretty strong, hard to tackle. Secondly, he's quick. Third, he's shifty. Fourth, he had some space. Very difficult for a safety to come down and make a tackle on that. He's not going to be the last tackle to fail to make a tackle on that play. So that's run defense. That's one of the 3 plays. That one got out 44 yards, part of a touchdown drive. The 64-yarder, we talked about that one a minute ago. 3rd and 1. Michigan State run blitz inside. Man-to-man over here, 1 safety. Could Harvey have done anything different on that? I'm not sure. But run defense the rest of the most of the rest of the game. I mean, Master Teague came into the game, Master Teague averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Good big back. He carried the ball 14 times, and he averaged 3.3 yards per carry. You can say stats are for losers, and that's true. But I'm just countering your point that you said the run defense is bad. The final tallies, it's bad. But it's not like down after down after down, they were giving up chunks of 7 yards, 12 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards. That is truly being outclassed. I think the score ends up the same, and the numbers look bad, but the run defense that Michigan State played in this game, you can take from that and apply it versus Northwestern and stop the run. You can apply it versus Indiana and stop the run, which they did. You might be able to take it and apply it versus Penn State and stop the run. You've seen other games, other teams, where they're giving up chunks and have no shot of stopping the run ever, and you take that run defense, and it's not going to work against anybody. There were enough plays today in run defense that enabled the boat to float. If you don't stop the run inside, the boat don't float. They stopped the run. That's, inside the 1 yard line, stopped them. 2nd and 1, stopped them. 3rd and 1, covered it. Quarterback keeps it. Touchdown. Ohio State was like 5 of 8 on 3rd down in the first half. My point is, if you're really just dominating a team, you never even have to worry about getting to the 3rd down. You're forcing Ohio State to go to 3rd down 8 times. And you might say, man, that's loser speak. I'm saying Ohio State's got a good offense. And I promise you there was some decent run defense being played. Naquan Jones, Deshaun Mallory. I've not watched the defensive ends yet. But no question, part of run defense is defending the quarterback. So, aside from those 3 plays, I think my numbers were that Ohio State averaged like 3.9 yards per carry on the other 45 carries, which is good run defense. For the whole game, it's a fail. But if you do video analysis, and that doesn't change the outcome of this game, we're just talking about going forward, what the problems are and what the chances are things are going to get fixed or improved. When you do video analysis to look under the hood, what do we have? You look under the hood here, and there were plenty of run plays against a good run offense where Michigan State played good run defense. So I challenge your assertion that Michigan State's run defense was bad. It ended up bad on the scoreboard. But correctable, I don't know if that's the right word. Doing some math here. Yeah, 3.6. Ohio State averaged 3.6 yards per carry on the other 45 carries for the day. And then they got 156 yards on the other 3. Stats are for losers? I don't know. I'm looking at that like there's something to build on. Again, that's different. You've seen games when a team rushes for 320 like Ohio State did, and it's just 8 yards, 12 yards, 7 yards, 12 yards. They never get to 3rd down. It's different there. Not great. But the zone read, that quarterback's just different though, guys. I mean, the way you can have everything stopped and he just eludes everybody and just makes something up, and you are correct on defense and you're playing well on defense, and he just says, okay, now I'm just going to go backyard on you and you're not going to tackle me and I'm going to get a 1st down. It's hard to stop. What do we have here? Mr. Bowman says, I still say our next great quarterback is not on campus yet. Interesting point of view. Old Tuck says, Rocky's had his chances. Turnovers are too frequent. Mr. Bowman says, if you know Fields likes to run, why did they not have a spy watching him? Some of that's pick your poison. Because if you spy him, then you're taking someone out of pass defense. And I already mentioned that pass defense, they had him under 160 yards until the 41-yarder when he threw it deep against Kalen Gervin. Still ended up with 199, but that's 100 yards fewer than what he averages. I understand he didn't have to throw a lot because the run game was going so well. But the run game goes well every week, and he still ends up throwing 300. But usually he's like 22 out of 25. Spying him, I'll have to look to see how they were doing it. But if you're spying somebody, you almost need 2 spies on him because he's so elusive. And then again, then you're taking people out of the pass rush. Michigan State rushed 4 for the most part. Indiana got home with like 5 or 6 sacks against him, pressured him into some interceptions. So I'm guessing Michigan State didn't want to take somebody out of the pass rush in order to spy. So do you take someone out of the pass defense to do it? Michigan State did a lot of run blitzes with linebackers. So if you're run blitzing also, it's almost like you want to get them before we get started. That was the idea they went with. I'd have to watch it again to see how much spying they did. Somebody mentioned it. Was it Tucker or Simmons? It sounded like they were spying them here and there. But on those scrambles, you know what? I'm sure they were. On some of those scrambles, rushing 4, Michigan State with their pass defense. Michigan State did not play much man-to-man today because if you play man-to-man, you're more susceptible to tuck and run scrambles. There's a lot of cover 3, 4 underneath, 4 rushing. So within those 4 underneath, within his own principle, I'm sure they were looking for it. He still got out. It's just hard to track that guy down. There are not many people that can beat you with the vertical pass game the way he can with those receivers who can also beat you with his feet like that. There's just not many people on the planet like that. Angelo Gross, enthusiast, says, Comp, any transfers you know of that are showing interest? Not right now. Not that I've heard. They'll be looking in that category pretty soon. Gordon Tanona says, do you think the linebacker commit from Alabama was referred by Nick Saban? Good question. I don't know how much of sharing of information like that Saban does. It's possible. It's possible that some of the recruiting aides may have talked on each program. I'm not sure how much Saban allows that, but a good question. I don't know the answer. Mr. Boneman says, our tackling was very, very, very subpar today. Definitely not as good as it was against Northwestern. Michigan State's tackling was great against Northwestern. These cats at Ohio State are harder to tackle. Newsflash. There was one missed tackle that definitely hurt. My guy, Angelo Gross. Excellent player, excellent freshman, was bananas against Northwestern. Excellent player. But he'll be the first one to tell you that the 4th time Ohio State had the ball, 14-0 lead. Michigan State clinging into the game, trying to stay into the game. At that point, Michigan State had the ball 4 times, 4 3-and-outs. Now Ohio State has the ball back. Play number 3 of that drive, 3rd and 6. Throw a little swing pass out to the wide receiver in space. Angelo Gross missed a tackle, and he's a good tackler. And he's a good tackler when he gets his hands on you. Some people get their hands on you, and it's turnstiles. He gets his hands on you, it's grappling hooks. You usually go down. And he can make a tackle at full speed, not having to break down to do it. Some people have to come in, break down to make a tackle. He tackles through it, doesn't break down to do it. He's excellent. On this particular occasion, now he's trying to tackle a wide receiver over there in the flat in space, not the easiest thing to do. Missed a tackle, first down. I don't know, a few plays later, 4, 5, 6 plays later, touchdown, 28-0. Make that tackle. Those are the little things you have to do to stay competitive in this game. And didn't get it done. That was one of the areas. Tackling in general, that was a costly one right there. And just, corralling the quarterback. But if you watch Ohio State enough, there's a lot of teams that have trouble corralling him. Big Will says, I really hope Mel Tucker evaluates Jay Johnson. I really hope he makes a move. Mr. Bowman says, wow, Coastal Carolina just won. Jack Doyle again with the super chat. My man, Jack Doyle. Thank you, man. Rob South says, what's up, fellas? Doors Fan 91 says, sounds like the mag is not as high on Buckley as others. Talking about the recruit Buckley out of Godwin Heights. He's all right, I've not looked at his senior film yet. Offensive line, moves okay. Defensive line, let me see. He's all right. I'll have to look. I got to look at his film some more. his film, this thing with Buckley, he played against such poor competition on his senior film. It was just hard to get an idea when he locked up with a guy, the strength, because, I mean, really, the competition was really bad. Would have liked to have seen him at the T-shirt camps this summer to get an idea of how he moved in space. Number 14 ranked player in the state from Godwin Heights, 14 ranked by Michigan State, or by Rivals.com. I'd have to look at some more. Detroit Spartans says, agreed, just wanted you to dive into the quarterback discussion here. Jake Roberts says, I like Fletcher, he's going to be good. Blong John says, Fletcher's penalty looked inadvertent. He was engaged with the tackle. Thanks, I've not looked at it closely. I respect your opinion and observation on that. Mr. Bowman talking about rocking and tie. Yeah, this is what I wore to the game today. So I got home and had to immediately turn us on here. Blong John says, Mosley drifted on the incompletion in the end zone. Fault the wide receiver. Okay, interesting. You're talking about the second down, that what looked like a well-thrown ball by Peyton Thorne, and Hooker came in and made the pass break up. Yeah, I can see that. You know, if he comes back to the ball and snags it, check out the big brain on Blong John. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. Fault the receiver on that one. Okay. I still like the quarterback on that one, as you do too. Peyton Thorne staring down the barrel of a pass rush, makes a throw to get hit, accurate. You make a good point. Maybe Mosley can come back. Should have made that play for him. Aaron May says, Comp, I think we found our quarterback for the future in Thorne. I must say that we have to reevaluate our wide receivers. I'm not really impressed with Mosley. And what's the deal with Trayvon Morgan? Morgan was on the field a little bit today. He's still not been targeted with a throw yet. I was trying to watch him during warm-ups a little bit and didn't really get a read on what was going on. He looks good, though. He's all airport. Looks good in the airport. Doors Fan 91 says, Comp, I know Michigan State did not have a spring, and the talent is what it is, but Jay Johnson looks like a middle-of-the-road offensive coordinator, not seeing much upside with him. How is he as a recruiter? I don't know about him as a recruiter. I thought his offensive design against Michigan was great, not only the deep passes, but I mentioned a couple weeks before that I was really impressed the way Michigan State had something aggressive on the first play of every series in that Michigan game. That was kind of different. I thought that was pretty good. Run game last week against Northwestern, I thought they showed some aptitude going with the quarterback draw, borrowing that from Nebraska, who had success with that, and they were well-timed with when they went to it. On a third down conversion midway through the first half at a good moment, and then sprinkled it in as they went. Zone read option, I thought that they introduced that a little bit more last week. I thought that was good also. This week, I just think the quarterback situation in the first 5 drives, going 3 and out, not throwing beyond the sticks on third down a few times. I mean, Ohio State's a good team, and I know there's been games in the past where nobody's been open, specifically against Ohio State with some of the guys they've had in the past. But Ohio State's pass defense this year has not been good. I think Thorne came in and proved that there were some openings there. So is that to blame the coaches for not going to the right guy? I don't know that, because I'm not in practice. I don't know what it looks like. But I understand what you're saying about that, but I'd wait and see. I would, because I kind of thought he was pretty good last week and against Michigan. But appreciate your comment. Big Will says Jay Johnson has never been a good offensive coordinator anywhere he has gone. Well, he was at Minnesota there at the end of, was it the Jerry Kill era? They huddled back then, but they kind of looked at that time kind of similar. I don't know. I thought they were solid, but point well taken. Doors fan saying Johnson calling a wheel route to Hayward on third down versus a jump ball to Morgan was disappointing. The wheel route to Hayward was that the first? Was that the primary read on that? I'd have to go back and look. But there were a few times when they threw the check down to Hayward when it didn't really have much of a shot. That's better than forcing something for an interception, I guess. But point well taken. Big Will says Peyton Thorne needs to start from now on. Brad Fishenko says, sounds like the Big Ten is planning on having 2 games in Indy on Friday night of crossover week. What are you hearing about this? I've not heard that, but that sounds like a good idea to me. 2 games in Indy. You'd have the Big Ten championship game. And you might as well, because it's not like you're charging tickets. And the Big Ten, yeah, why not? Let the second and third place teams in each division, let them travel and get a little bit of a postseason flavor. Second place teams likely to be Indiana against Iowa, I would think. That'd be a good game. Would love to see it if they had Michael Penix. That's the other thing. If it's going to be Indiana, they're playing in Indianapolis. That gets all the Indiana Hoosier media to that game. Good for Indiana football. Good for the Big Ten. I like it. George Z says, when's the Big Ten basketball stream? George Z, I like your style. Let's see. Michigan State plays Western Michigan Sunday. That's tomorrow. And then when do they play Virginia? I don't look too far ahead. I just look at the next game. I don't look too far ahead. They play Virginia on Wednesday. I would say there's a pretty good chance. What time is that game, Michigan State, Virginia basketball? Let's see if we get a game time on this. 9:15. Maybe we do a pregame call-in for that one. Because 9:15, game's over at 12. We got work to do till 1. We're not going to have a show here just for West Coast Spartans who are up late. Pregame call-in show on Wednesday. Michigan State versus Virginia pregame. I'll see if I can get my hands on some Virginia video, see what they look like. I'm sure they're still doing block remover. I love block remover. People talk about Virginia Cavalier basketball like they set basketball back 50 years. That's fine with me. I prefer that type of basketball over 30-second shot clock basketball, which is morphed into everybody running the exact same crap, which I think it's not as imaginative. I like a 35-second shot clock because then you can get driven crazy by the Bo Ryan swing offense. You get driven crazy by the Tony Bennett block remover. I like block remover. Won a national championship with it. They lost to the Retrievers too, I know that, but I assume they're still doing that. I don't know who's doing what for them, but maybe pregame. Maybe I'll put that as a post. Maybe we'll do a poll, ask on the message board, Final Forum, if people want to come over to a pregame, pregame call-in, maybe. It's an idea. Rob South says, rumors about Harbaugh getting a 3-year extension. Are you joking?
Call from
Taylor from L.A.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
I'm not familiar with Taylor, but I'm going to gamble.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
We're going to put him on the air. Taylor from Los Angeles. How you doing? Welcome to Spartan Mag Live Open Mic Night.
Hey, how's it going, Comp? Thank you for everything you do and Spartan Mag.
All right. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. What's on your mind?
Question. I mean, I've been watching, Michigan State lose badly with big, disparities to OSU in East Lansing for a long time. So my question, with Coach Tucker coming out with first game against that team down the road and winning, I think that's a huge all Spartans are proud of that. And that sets the tone, and we appreciate that, and that's tremendous. But everybody gets blown out to Ohio State. Antonio did, Tucker just did. I mean, it's what happened.
I'll stop you right there. Pretty much everybody in the Big Ten gets blown out by Ohio State. So Michigan State's in company there,
That's fair. I mean, but just what do you think? When can we realistically expect to be competitive with Ohio State, or if ever?
No, I'll stop you right there again. Most fan bases around the Big Ten would want to call you as a Michigan State fan to ask you how to do it, because your team has done it more than anybody else in recent years, right?
That's true. I mean, fair.
So, being competitive with Ohio State, if you're competitive with Ohio State to the point where you're beating them on a regular basis, that means you're a top 5 team in the country. Penn State thought they were getting there, and then they took a big step backwards this year. Michigan, of course, has not been close. Wisconsin has sparred with them a little bit, and Wisconsin's been good, but it's like Alabama and the SEC. Everybody's wondering, Arkansas fans, when are we ever going to be able to compete with Alabama? When are we going to beat Alabama? You beat Alabama, then you're LSU last year, right? If you beat Alabama,
right.
if you once you beat Alabama, then you're like Deshaun Watson, Clemson. That's where it is. That's top 3 percentile with Ohio State, and I don't think this is a great Ohio State team, unless their pass defense coming into today was not good enough to hang with Clemson or Alabama. I don't know about Notre Dame. They're not much of a pass attack. They're different, but it's not vintage Ohio State right now because of the pass defense. That being said, they still have a lot of beautiful athletes all over the place that Michigan State over the course of time is not going to match up with right now. I thought Michigan State gave great effort and was pretty good at the line of scrimmage for a lot of snaps today. But among other things, there was a big disparity just at the quarterback position. So you have to get that special quarterback. Like this year, University of North Carolina, for example, they've not been great, but they had a chance to be something because Howell is a special quarterback. You get a guy like that, like the way Russell Wilson turned Wisconsin around. Wisconsin was always pretty good. I guess they've been good for a long time with a number of different quarterbacks, but he kind of took them to a different level. Kirk Cousins at Michigan State, he didn't have the supporting cast on defense and everything. But if you get like a Kirk Cousins and bring him along slowly and mix him in with a better defense, that's kind of what you're going to have to get. Now, those guys don't grow on trees. There's 32 teams in the NFL and probably only 20 legitimate NFL quarterbacks. And the other 12 teams just keep rotating guys because nobody's good enough. College football, you can go out and recruit and scout a lot of people. And you bring in Rocky Lombardi, think he's got a chance. You can bring in Theo Day, think he's got a chance. You can bring in, Brian Lewerke, think he's got a chance, and he did some good things. But there's Justin Fields. He's top of the heap. And that Michigan State, Rocky Lombardi, bless his heart. I thought Michigan State hit pretty well, was okay at the line of scrimmage, covered pretty well, kept Justin Fields down to an extent, had trouble corralling him. But I thought in the first half when it's 28-0, the biggest discrepancy, I thought was the quarterback. I hate to say that about Rocky, but Justin is special. So getting the quarterback in today's football, that's a big step toward getting where you want to be. Like look at Iowa State right now. They've got a good quarterback. You get the defense together, you make sure the boat floats everywhere else, and then the quarterback, does more than stir the drink. So you're asking when? That's got to be a component. It has to be.
Okay.
And Peyton Thorne, does he have a chance? I don't know. He's played 2 games as a redshirt freshman. He's got some quick feet. I think he gets rid of the ball quickly. He's got some zip. Accuracy looks okay. We've not seen him tested in every way, but I know that Brad Salem liked him, previous offensive coordinator at Michigan State. So he's got a chance to be all right. He's got a chance, Special, I don't know. There's not many special guys, but he got a chance to come around, I think. And at the highest level, you look at someone like Jalen Hurts, who won a lot at Alabama, and even he, remember when Saban took him out in the third quarter to go with attack, So I mean, even like that next level, at that elite level, it's so. I mean, and there's not many that are in that category. I mean, Georgia went out and got Jamie Newman from Wake Forest, and you're a Michigan State fan. You saw Jamie Newman against Wake Forest in the Pinstripe Bowl last year. He's good, but, he's not great, right? They just graduated with a dude that was drafted in the 6th round, the guy that they chose over Fields. That's why Fields left Georgia, right? So Fields leaves. What's his name? Jeff Brom. What's his name? I don't know. 1 syllable for Georgia, NFL, whatever. He was kind of okay, but they let Fields go to stick with that guy, and then that guy graduates, and they go to Wake Forest, and they saw him as being the best guy on the market. The best guy on the market turned out to be De'Aaron King at Houston, who went to Miami, and he's made a difference there. You look at Miami, they changed coordinator with our friend Dan Enos, right? They get a new coordinator and bring in a new quarterback, and that offense is completely different, right? Quarterback makes a big difference. Did Michigan State reach out to De'Aaron King? I think they might have. I think they reached out to the Costello kid that went to Mississippi State. No interest. And they might have reached out. There's another West Coast. Oh, JT Daniels that went from USC to Georgia. Michigan State reached out to him too because Mel Tucker was involved recruiting him out of high school a few years ago. No interest. It's a California kid. Do you want to go to Michigan State on a rebuild or go to Georgia? So there's not many quarterback transfers out there each year. There was that Anthony Brown kid from Boston College. He was in the portal, and it was someone that a lot of Michigan State fans were talking about on the message boards last winter. Like, there's a quarterback, let's go after him. You look at his stats, and they were just kind of okay, and he went out to Oregon and didn't win the job. So, if Rocky Lombardi entered the transfer portal right now, there would be fans at, like, Georgia Tech and TCU like, hey, what about Rocky Lombardi? You know what I'm saying? It's just the nature. Because they've not looked at it closely yet, right? Anthony Brown, same thing. There's at Boston College. There's a finite number of quarterbacks out there. The best you can do is build an offensive line, give them time, bring along those receivers, find some running backs that have a little more explosiveness than this. That would help. Put together a defense, and you can win some games with a game manager, right? But to get to that level you're talking about, you're going to need someone, like Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins is when you're making that kind of money, you're elite, right? In the sport. Say what you want about the Vikings being 5-4 and having trouble, but there's not many of them walking the earth. But I appreciate your pain about not being able to compete with Ohio State, but there's a lot of company in that category.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And the way this regime is hitting the recruiting trail, I think, and the way that they've kept up the defense, the defensive standard. It's interesting that a lot of the problems are the same, but the one vast disparity is the emphasis in recruiting, I think. So,
and it's a different approach also. The defense has been pretty good. The old staff would have lost this game too, but they would have given up 350 through the air and only 150 on the ground. Just by where you put your pegs in the holes. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's pick your poison. The old staff would have done more to stop the run and picked the vertical pass poison. Now, that being said, I know J.T. Dobbins got loose a couple times against Michigan State. Yeah, that'll happen too. But the recruiting thing, I think Michigan State is trying to do more elephant hunting and recruiting nationwide. That's different. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. In the state of Michigan, there is pretty good talent in the state of Michigan every year. Does Michigan State begin to get more of their share of the in-state talent? And do they bring them in, and then do you get them indoctrinated to, the program and everything about the program? That's one of the steps. There's some material on there, and Mel Tucker, he's planning to get it done. And he's taking this loss. He didn't like that outcome. They've been blown out 3 times, and competitors don't like that. He's trying to figure it out. But, they've got the material that they've got. The turnovers against Iowa and Indiana really messed up, spoiled those specimens. Iowa's pretty good, but you can't be turning it over 9 times against Rutgers. So it'd be nice to see them play a clean game and play some of those games, but playing a clean game is part of the thing. A lot of coaches will tell you that most football games are not won. Most football games are not won. They're lost. One team loses it. You know what I'm saying? Now, pressure will do that. Pressure busts pipes, right? That's why it's a great sport. There's so much to analyze. There's 22 dudes on the field, and then another 22 come out, and then we get 6 days to talk about it. There's no other sport like that. And you play 12 times a year, 350 days for the rest of the year to talk about it. Then there's recruiting. It's crazy. It's a great sport. Appreciate it, man. What else you got? You been watching basketball at all? Come on.
No, man. I just moved from Baltimore to L.A. So I was Taylor from Baltimore. Now I'm Taylor from L.A. So just getting used to the time zone difference, and appreciate you being up late back in the great state of Michigan, and keeping all the Spartan fans informed, and just breaking everything down in your analysis, and just staying on top of the breaking news. It's just tremendous, and it's great that no matter where I am in the country or in the world, I can always keep up to date on what's happening now with Michigan State sports. So we thank you, Comp. We love you, and wish you and your family stay safe, and Happy holidays, Happy New Year, all that good stuff.
Thanks a lot, Taylor from Los Angeles. You're talking about SpartanMag.com. You're a subscriber?
Yes, sir.
SpartanMag.com. Awesome. Thanks for your kind words. Make sure you post over at the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com. We like to hear from you over there. All right, Taylor?
Absolutely. Will do. Thanks, Comp.
Thanks for calling.
All right.
There's Taylor from Los Angeles, formerly from Baltimore. Appreciate his insight and feedback and his passion for Michigan State sports. That's what we're here for. It is 10:30 right now Eastern time, and I've got work to do. I'm hoping to write a .comp article. I didn't write one. Last week, Michigan State beat Northwestern, and I was up till 5 in the morning doing some other stuff because there was a basketball game that night also. Michigan State beat Notre Dame in basketball. My assistant, Paul Konerdijk, was doing a lot of basketball that night, so I was doing some of the stuff Paul usually does. Next thing I knew, it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. Had to get up in a couple hours to go get a Christmas tree. I just ran out of time. I didn't do a .comp, and I got some emails. People like, man, it's a big win. I was expecting a .comp. I appreciate those readers out there that expect that to be part of their Michigan State football morning on a Sunday. We try to be a companion to you through your journey in Michigan State fanhood, and I didn't get that one written. We've got a couple articles up right now. Planning to do one tonight. Hopefully I won't run out of gas, but it is getting late. So we might need to go to that here in a minute. But the people that took time to post, I'm going to go ahead and check these out. We'll still take a phone call if anyone wants to chime back in for the call-in show here. Losing my voice a little bit. I'll get closer to the mic to see if I can last a little longer with this. My voice. AG says, hi, Jim. You answered my question earlier. I just went back and rewatched it. I'm preferred walk-on SpartanMag.com. Thanks for taking time to do what you do. Well, thank you, AG, preferred walk-on, for subscribing to SpartanMag.com. Peyton Fleetmeyer says, why can't our football team be elite like our basketball team? Peyton Fleetmeyer, frustrated. I feel your pain, brother. By the way, I want to say SpartanMag.com. Go over there, subscribe, become a member. I've got to change the thing on top. The old holiday gift thing is no longer available, but you can try it for 30 days for free. Hopefully by the time you see this, if you're watching a recording, if you're still watching at this point, you can go over there and get it 30 days for free. Try it, and you'll get addicted. It'll be like your Michigan State sports crack, and then we got you. But we got to work hard to keep you. That's what we want. Why can't our football team be elite like our basketball team? Partly it comes down to recruiting radius. You can win national championships by just recruiting within 5 hours of East Lansing in basketball. You can't do it in football. You cannot win a national championship just recruiting within 5 hours of East Lansing. That's part of it. It comes down to natural resources. There's more natural basketball resources around here. And when you get into Ohio and Indiana, Chicago, and I know Michigan State went out to Texas to get Marble, and they went to Texas to get McQuaid. There's more of that. But for the most part, it's going to be Midwestern guys. There's more natural recruiting resources for basketball. Aaron Mays says, Comp, I agree with Callie Spartan. These are posts from when Callie Spartan was going on his soliloquy. A lot of support for Callie Spartan. Mr. Boneman says, Peyton, that is easy. Our basketball team is a blue blood. Our football team is not. The same thing can be said about Alabama. Their football is blue blood. Their basketball is not. Brian V says, I hope Nils calls. I like his insights. All right, Brian. I'm going to tell Nils that, but he doesn't need his head to get any bigger. Kidding. By the way, I want to take this time to thank Conan Dyke, associate editor, SpartanMag.com, doing a great job. Been doing a great job for years. Matt Dorsey, recruiting expert emeritus. Is that how you say that? Emeritus? Corey Robinson, recruiting anchor, recruiting insider, SpartanMag.com. Interested in football recruiting, Michigan State football recruiting, SpartanMag.com. Corey Robinson's got you covered there. So does Justin Thind. Justin Thind, intern extraordinaire. Very bright guy. Very glad to have him as part of the SpartanMag.com news organization. Peyton Fleetmeyer says, it'll be nice if the football team catches up to the basketball team. That'll bring hella recruits. Mel Tucker might be able to. You're right. Be hard to do. Mr. Bowman says, Peyton, we need a Flintstone class in football. It starts in Detroit area, Belleville, West Bloomfield, Oak Park, Detroit King, Cass Tech. Start there. Keep Ohio State, Kentucky, Penn State out of Michigan, and we can. Interesting point of view.
Call from
Aaron Mays.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Aaron Mays from Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to SpartanMag.com. Open mic night. How you doing, Aaron?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about you, Comp?
Really good, really good.
Good. I just want to know your assessment. And I guess I'm asking you to be a prognosticator here, but do you think that Mel Tucker and basically defensively will stick to this 4-2-5? Do you think eventually, we'll go back to the 4-3? Because the reason I say that, because I think based on the talent, he went to the 4-2-5 because the linebacking talent is so thin. That's my assessment. And another observation on my part would be the only way that Michigan State goes is when the offensive and defensive line will basically, to me, the gold standard, as far as the Big Ten, as far as offensive lines goes, is either Wisconsin and Iowa. To me, those are the gold standards of offensive linemen in the Big Ten, period. I mean, they're just forces, no matter what. So I'd just like to hear what you say.
Great points. Offensive line, it's as you know, it's more than a 1-year fix. I mean, you talk about culture, that thing gets going and then it just kind of rebuilds itself. Michigan State had some good offensive lines there for a while and just never really, fortified it, never really replenished it, and it went south. We all saw that. Wisconsin and Iowa, they've been the best. Barry Alvarez sought to do that, doing it with walk-ons, doing it with in-state guys. They've got and he went up there thinking that they could get those body types there locally and a few others. Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, that was his thing. He's an offensive line coach. Just like Mark D'Antonio was a defensive backs coach, and that's what they had here. Ferentz was an offensive line guy.
That makes sense.
He was offensive line coach in the NFL. That's been his area of expertise and emphasis, and they've gotten it done year after year. So I think Kapilovic, Michigan State's new offensive line coach, I think he's good. I think they made some progress.
I do too.
And he's come, a lot of people have a lot of respect for him, including Mel Tucker. I think he's a good one. A lot of energy. And I asked Mel Tucker on Tuesday what makes Kapilovic good, and I did not include that. We have an article over at SpartanMag.com, kind of a long read into the offensive line. Wrote it, I think, on Thursday. Still has some table life. Still interesting at this point. If those are new subscribers, go back and read it. And I asked, and I didn't include that quote in the story. I'll go back, maybe tag up on that again later. But Tucker, all through the season is like, trust me, this guy's a good offensive line coach. And they did a lot of good things last year with a young offensive line at Colorado. You may have known that I'm friends with a guy whose son is a running back at Colorado. And he was really impressed with Kapilovic. And he told me when Tucker was hired, he says Tucker's going to take Kapilovic with him. So I think in time, Kapilovic he's energetic in recruiting, and he's recruiting for his position coast to coast. And over the course of time, I think they've got a good chance to build an offensive line with Kapilovic, as long as they can keep him, and I see him staying for a while. So I think offensive line's going to take a while, and I think they got a good chance to get there. As far as the 4-3, 4-2-5 goes, I talked about this earlier, and Mel Tucker, when he was hired, he said he wasn't like married to any certain defensive front philosophy. He says he's coaching a 4-3 and a 3-4. He's won with both.
Right. I guess preferably I like the 4-3. I just like this flexibility. So I hope he sticks with the 4-3. That's just me, though.
I'm guessing, he hired Hazelton, and Hazelton's a 4-2-5 guy. So Tucker went along with that.
Okay.
So, and, it's pick your poison. In today's age, do you want to be...
You remember back in the... I'm sorry to cut you off, Comp. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
You remember back in the day, though, back in the 70s, we had, there was called rover backs and stuff like that. Do you remember those days?
George Webster was a rover.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Now, that was back. I mean, football was different back then. Offensive linemen couldn't use their hands.
Right.
So, the pass game was completely different. And Webster was the best ever at that stuff. If you look at some of those, he could just roam and just range and just hit.
Right.
People. But rover, they used to call rover back in the 70s also when not many teams kept two deep safeties because people, pass protection wasn't evolved yet. So, I think
Right.
Schembechler used to call the strong safety the Wolf Man, I think.
Wolf,
So-
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. I was trying to think of it, but I remember the word rover, so that's why I stuck with. But yes, you're right. You're exactly right.
I think back then teams would have single safety deep and an extra man in the box because nobody could throw all that well. It was all about crowding the box.
That's true too.
Like you go back
That's
and watch
true, too.
like Michigan State in the 1960s when they were holding every team, like 1965 and 66, like every team to negative yardage, like consecutive weeks.
Right.
They'd held Notre Dame to minus 20 and Michigan to minus 9 and Ohio State to minus 4. Like, where'd those stats come from? You go back and look at it, and those teams could not run the ball because it was just gap 8 plus 1, and you couldn't run. Then if you went back to throw, the offensive lineman had to block like this, and you just couldn't block for more than a second and a half, and it's sacking people, and that's how they did it. They changed that because the defenses had too much of an edge back then. You could start pass protecting with open hands. And then they took away where the corners couldn't, the illegal chuck, the bump and run. So to help the offense because it makes it more exciting. But 4-2-5, I think that's a philosophy. I think they went with Hazleton. It's just putting more emphasis on containing the pass than stopping the run. Now they figure they can stop the run too while they're doing that. Maybe not against a quarterback that can run like that. That's kind of where you just don't have you don't have enough pegs to fill all 12 holes. If you're going against the Peyton Ramsey or a quarterback who's not a running quarterback, you can take away the pass and stop the run with 6.5 in the box, or depending on how many wide receivers are there. But 4-2-5, other teams are doing that also. Wisconsin kind of does a little bit of both with 3 down linemen. Minnesota is a 4-2-5. Indiana's a 4-2-5. Now, Ohio State's a 4-3. But the third linebacker is that cat Browning, number 5, and he's 6'3",
Right.
He's 6'3", 248. What I wrote in the pre-snap read is that if every team had guys like that, then you wouldn't have to run a 4-2-5. Because he's big enough to stop the run, and he can cover running backs. He can run like crazy. Now, that being said,
yes.
Peyton Thorne broke a tackle against him, but he was a 5-star recruit, number 1 player in Texas type of guy. There's just not many cats
So
like that.
basically, you need a special athlete to
Well,
to,
if you want to continue to run a 4-3 these days, you're going to need a cat like that. Or you look at Alabama.
Exactly.
Just when they come out and they're playing defense against a team with 3 wide receivers, just look to see who they walk out to play defense on that slot guy, because that's where the whole game is. Where do you want to make your decision on the slot guy? Do you want to play 4-3 like Michigan State used to with D'Antonio and leave that slot uncovered? And Michigan State would Michigan State would leave that slot. I don't want to say uncovered, but they give it a free release, and teams would just hit that that slot out all day. Slot, he's open. Slot. Well, the 4-2-5 takes that away. Michigan State will do. Ohio State does that a lot. Ohio State will go.
They do.
They go 3 corners and 1 safety with a 4-3. So they're like, okay, our corners are good enough. If you're gonna go 3 receivers, we'll have the flexibility. They don't do this every play, but they'll go man to man, man to man, man to man, single safety deep, and still have 3 linebackers in the box or 7. And they're always going to be +1 against you in the run to stop the run. They're like, we are always going to outnumber you in the box because we're talented enough in the back. That's their philosophy. However, this year, new defensive coordinator, and they just graduated 3 NFL DBs, and their pass defense has been getting lit up. You saw what Penix did for Indiana. So everybody in Columbus is like, maybe we should go to a 4-2-5. You know what I'm saying? So, but those elite programs can still do a 4-3, partly because they can get away with single safety deep, or the third linebacker is really mobile. Michigan State stuck with a 4-3 the last couple of years with D'Antonio, and Antoine Simmons was pretty good in the slot last year. When he played that slot linebacker, they still assigned him to always he had a foot more in the box than he did to the slot. They want you, he'd have the B gap on his side, so he's playing run defense, and he also has the slot on RPOs and bubble screens. And that's that overhang defender. That's the guy that run pass conflict. It's the way Michigan State did it, and week in and week out, they usually, against most teams, stop the run first. Now, they were soft against the pass, But their philosophy was, we'll be soft against the pass, but inside the 20 in the red zone, when there's less room and you can't throw it out of the end zone, it becomes compressed, and we got a good chance to hold you to a field goal. You don't necessarily want to give up drives and field goals, but they're guessing there might be one batted down, at the 50, or a dropped pass or a penalty, and you might stop yourself in the process. But to answer your question, I think they're sticking with the 4-2-5. I wouldn't be surprised if they morph into having the capability of being a 30 front with 3 down linemen, like Wisconsin is, where a true 30, where all 3 guys are 2-gapping and have the brawn to man 2 gaps. So if you're 2-gapping and you've got the strength to man 2 gaps, now if you have 5 blockers up front, usually you need 6 players to man all 6 gaps. If you're 2-gapping effectively, you can still defend that you can defend that theoretically with only 5 guys.
1 to 5, right?
So that it's all about trying to get that +1 advantage. And when Alabama was great, they morphed into a 3-4 under Saban when Tucker was there, and he wasn't involved in. He was a defensive backs coach, but Saban was always a 4-2-5. He was always a 4-3 guy. He was an under defense when he went to LSU and morphed it to an over defense. So did D'Antonio, and then Izzo. Saban continued to morph it to a 3, with a 30 with 2-gapping, because he had those, like Marcel Darius and those just great guys that could do the job they're basically doing the job collectively. You have 3 people doing the job, and it ends up being like you got 4 people on the field. It creates the illusion like you got 4, which gives you an extra man, kind of. But if everybody had a Baron Browning or someone built like that could run like that, then you could play a 4-3 and put them in the slot and survive it. But even still, they can maybe use a little more agility there. I mean, when Ohio State, if they make it to the playoff this year, unless based on what they've been so far, they will get lit up by Alabama in the pass defense. Bad this year, not last year, but this year. They should have beat Clemson last year. Had them beat. They were dominating that game, and they didn't score touchdowns. They kicked field goals. Remember when Ohio State was dominating Clemson, like moving the ball on them, but they were kicking field goals. Didn't get enough of a big lead while they're dominating. Clemson came back on them. Didn't matter though, because LSU was going to beat them anyway.
Right.
So I think they're going to stick with 4-2-5. I think they're sticking with 4-2-5, and it's an interesting thing, and you will learn how it goes, just like I will. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. I've always said, and I've said this in the past, like the gold standard for the 4-2-5 was Gary Patterson at TCU, and that's a different conference, and Hazleton's coming from the same conference. But TCU, and they had it going on real good, is 4-2-5, and they still stopped the run. And he had some great defenses. They've had trouble keeping it going year after year. But it's like a Supreme Court landmark case when TCU played Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl back in 2012. Because it was a 4-2-5 against behemoth Wisconsin, right? But that Wisconsin had Russell Wilson too. But they stopped the Wisconsin run until the end. Wisconsin was starting to get things going with power, but they kind of ran out of time. They scored, went for 2, didn't get it. If that game had gone another quarter, I think Wisconsin had it figured out. And if they played every year, I'd go edge Wisconsin. And if that TCU 4-2-5 team back then had to play Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Michigan State consecutively, that 4-2-5 might have gotten worn out over the course of a season. I don't know. Coaches, they talk about this amongst themselves. They don't know. It's all theory, right? And what are you going to do? What philosophy are you going to have on defense? But we'll see. I do know this. Michigan State stopped the run like crazy during the D'Antonio era, and there were still fans wondering, why are we giving up 380 yards passing to Western Michigan? Remember those days?
Yeah.
Remember when Western had that Braverman kid?
Yeah, lift them up.
Yeah, but it was pick your poison. I mean, Western, a lot of yards that night, but I think they only still scored 20 points or so, right? It was a good Western team.
Right.
Good Western team. It's tough to play defense. That's why those guys make money, trying to figure it out. And that's why some of them get fired. I don't know.
Yeah.
Great questions. I don't have the answers, my man. I don't know.
Hey, no problem. Hey, but I like your thought into it, and you gave me a better perspective on, what they're thinking. So I appreciate it, Comp.
It's all theory, and it's all X's and O's on a chalkboard, and you can always erase those things, So it helps when you got some players. And the players today for Michigan State, the defensive line interior was good enough. Simmons has been good enough, Xavier Henderson was good. Xavier Henderson was good for a while. He might have worn down a little bit today. Would it be good to have more than one? Teams aren't running tempo as much as they did 5-6 years ago. Ohio State didn't do much of that. But 3 or 4 years ago, Michigan State was starting to morph into having, playing more than just your starters on defense, almost like the hockey mentality. Run people on, run people off, like line changes on defense to keep up with tempo. But you're not seeing as much tempo.
Right.
But they were morphing to having like a whole 22 on defense being capable. I'm wondering if you had more depth. And then if Xavier Henderson would be even better if instead of playing 80 snaps, he only played 65. How much of a difference would that make? I don't know. Ohio State does that. Like, Tough Borland didn't play today, but the dude that replaced him, 47, he usually gets 10, 15 snaps a game anyway. And Browning would come out, and because the guy backing him up, it's a 4-star,
Right.
So, and they're wanting to play or they're going to the portal. So Ohio State not only has good talent, but more of their second stringers were playing. But Henderson's good. I just wonder if he might be better if you had more depth you could rely on there. Then the 4-2-5 gets even better. So players, Kalen Gervin got beat a couple times today. He was good last week against lesser competition. The Ohio State wide receivers a notch better. I thought Shaq Brown was good. They tested him. I thought he was good. Lit up that one dude with a good hit one time. Like I said earlier, maybe he should have gotten off that block a little bit better on that one run play that got out. I keep wanting to call him Terrell Pryor, but when Justin Fields got out for the 44-yard run, he kind of ducked in and it got outside of him. Just trying to be aggressive, but Shaq Brown continues to come around. So, the players will make those X's and O's look better. But defense, Michigan State came into this game, I think, ranked number 3 or 4 in the Big Ten in yards allowed per play, which is the stat. That's the stat. It's not total defense, because that can be different based on, how often your offense is making you go back on the field, and you can have an impact based on the tempo of your opponent, your tempo. If they're playing fast, they're going to get more yards, and if you're playing fast, there might be 16 possessions in a game. Whereas if you're playing Iowa and they're huddling, there might only be 12 possessions in the game. So total yards can get skewed. But yards per play is the stat. And Michigan State was like number 4 in the Big Ten this year. So far it's been pretty good. Today against Ohio State went out and got their 575 like they get against pretty much everybody.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else, Aaron?
Hey, that's it, Comp. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you. You have a great weekend, too, and happy holidays to everybody. Let me zip through these real quick. I don't want to leave anybody hanging, and then we'll hang this one up. Peyton Fleetmeyer says most 5-stars are going to the SEC schools because the weather isn't cold. Laughing out loud. They don't want to play up cold in the north. That's the biggest advantage SEC schools have. Also, most 5-stars, you're talking about 5-stars, just go to Rivals.com and look to see the 5-stars, who they are, and look to see what state they live in. 80% of them live in Sunbelt states. So you're asking them to leave their geographic region. That's hard to do. Secondly, they're big football people down there. I mean, they're surrounded by the fanfare all the time. If you grow up a great football player in Georgia, even if the Bulldogs don't recruit you, there's still a lot of glamour and hype to go to, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida. If any of those schools want you, SEC football is so big. That's where the players are, home field advantage and home recruiting advantage. It's just difficult to go down there and get players. The trick is to go down there and get ones that are overlooked. It's what D'Antonio did when he had Darquez Dennard and some of those guys. That's part of the formula. Peyton Fleetmeyer, Notre Dame gets all the recruits they want because of the amount of money they have. They also are an independent school, and they decide to choose whoever they want to play each game. Well, Peyton, Notre Dame's fans would tell you that they are not getting every player they want, and they want to know when are they going to be able to compete with Alabama, because when they've gotten on the field with them, it hasn't been pretty. Clemson, they beat them a couple weeks ago. They didn't have Lawrence. We'll see what happens in the rematch. They played Clemson in the college football playoff 2 years ago, and it was a blowout. So Notre Dame fans would tell you, they would say, hey, when are we going to get players? So they would disagree with you that Notre Dame gets all the players. They're better than they have been. I give them credit. But not what they used to be, partly because of the demographic switch. And that's one of the reasons Notre Dame has this partnership with the ACC. You know, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 20s, when Notre Dame was rolling, they were in the Midwest. And there's a ton of athletic talent in the Midwest. Now that's changed to the South. There was more economic power in the Midwest in the 20s and 40s compared to the South. That's not the case anymore. But back then, Notre Dame go out and recruit Catholic schools in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Didn't have to go down south. They got plenty from those places. All right. Looks like you're talking amongst yourselves with some of these. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Bone Man and Peyton Fleetmeyer are just dominating the conversation there. Zip it through. Let's see what we've got here. Clayton Thorson. How do we get talking about him? Detroit Spartan says Peyton Thorne's ceiling is Clayton Thorson. Good, but not elite. I like that comparison. Doors fan says Clayton Thorson was drafted into the NFL. Thorne has a long way to go. That is a long way to go. Thorson was very good. And I think Detroit Spartan was saying that is the ceiling of potential. And I wouldn't doubt that. But you know what? Tyler, what's his name? What was the I forget people's names too early. Who was the quarterback for Michigan State like 3 or 4 years ago? Tyler what? Tyler O'Connor. Tyler O'Connor was similar to Clayton Thorson. That's who I compared him to coming out of high school. Northwestern compared him to Thorson also, because Thorson was before Tyler O'Connor. There was one Michigan State beat Northwestern to get Tyler O'Connor. So Tyler O'Connor had that same ceiling of potential that you're talking about. I would say that Tyler O'Connor in this stage of his career is maybe similar to Peyton Thorne. O'Connor never quite obviously turned the corner on a lot of things. Love Tyler O'Connor, great kid, did his best, got beaten out by Maxwell Lewerke, I guess. O'Connor was punting for Michigan State at Michigan that one year. Remember? Michigan State ran a fake punt. Michigan State ran a fake punt. They were in the game. O'Connor's punting, and I think a big reason that he was punting all year was to set up a fake, possibly against Michigan. Good enough punter. Fake the punt. Monty Medeiros is open, and I'm telling you he's open, and the punter, O'Connor, just needed to throw it, and if he had been accurate, and if he would have caught it, it would have been first down, and that might have changed the game. I think that might have been the game when Michigan won 12-10 on 4 field goals. But I saw that, and I was just concerned because he was a quarterback in the making at the time. And I was concerned that the quarterback of the future was reluctant to throw that 4th down fake punt pass and punted it instead. Just the mindset there. I just flagged it, and I was a little concerned. And we know what O'Connor became. Did his best. Good guy. You know, he came in off the bench and led that crazy upset of Ohio State and Columbus on that rainy day. And was that 2015? Great job. God bless him. Connor Cook was hurt at that time. Was that after he got hurt against Maryland? And he was never the same. Cook wasn't. But O'Connor was great, and he's in Spartan lore for that win by itself, and that's enough. But the mentality there, not sure. Peyton Thorne would have thrown that ball. Not saying Thorne's going to be great, but I like where he is right now. Rooster Cheese says, why didn't Brown shadow Olave? hopefully Gervin or Jackson make a jump next season. Shaq Brown, you're saying why didn't Shaq Brown go with Olave wherever he went? It's a good question also. With no huddle offenses these days, it's a little harder to do that because if you have to wait to see where he's going to go, then the rest of the defense has to shift based on where you are. You're seeing a lot more right cornerback, left cornerback, or field corner, boundary corner. Good question, though. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see if we see any more of that in the future. Good question. All right, I think we're about done. Plus, my voice is about done. Plus, I've got some writing to do. Just looking through the post here, make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, I think we're about done. Appreciate everybody checking us out. Everybody coming and watching the post-game call-in show. We'll plan to do it again next Saturday when Michigan State plays Penn State. Might be able to kick this show off maybe a little earlier. And we expect everybody to call back in. Appreciate Aaron Mays in Detroit, Taylor in Los Angeles, Don in DeWitt, everybody else. Appreciate sponsorships, Don in DeWitt and Doyle, and the usual cast of favorites. SpartanMag.com. Go check us out over there. If you're not a subscriber, do it. We need you. Everybody have a great Sunday. Happy holidays. Be safe. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for looking in. We'll see you next time. Until next time, Jim Comparoni from East Lansing, Michigan, saying so long, SpartanMag.com.